Finally, several items are on consent, meaning the City Council may vote for all of them with one action. These include approving the September 5th meeting minutes, allowing surplus water and wastewater equipment to be sold, authorizing the use of city funds to pay for improvements on private property that will help prevent recycled water pipes from being accidentally connected to drinking water pipes and vice versa. Applying for and accepting grants for the police department to fund specialized equipment, education and enforcement programs to reduce underage drinking, and police officer wellness programs. Approving a contract to replace the Fire Station 1 fleet maintenance roof, and extending a contract to operate and maintain the city's public transit system and to offer incentives to attract and retain bus drivers. The San Luis Obispo City Council meeting will take place at City Hall on September 19th, starting at 5:30 p.m. The city encourages your participation, either in person or through two virtual options. To use your computer or mobile device, click on the Zoom link on the first page of the agenda. Then, when it's time for public comments on the item you're interested in, press the Raise Your Hand button. You'll be notified when it's your turn to speak, so you can take yourself off mute. To participate by phone, call 1-669-444-9171 and enter the meeting ID listed on the agenda. Press star 9 to raise your hand when the comment period on your item begins. You'll be notified when you've been unmuted and it's your turn to speak. Whether in person or virtual, you'll have 3 minutes to make your comments. Get the full agenda and attachments at www.slocity.org/agendas. Here's a quick preview of our next City Council meeting. The new Cultural Arts District parking structure is on the agenda, including a construction contract for the building, which will provide 397 new parking spots downtown with 41 new EV chargers. The City Council will also consider cost-effective options to make new buildings more energy efficient. These proposed requirements would provide a different way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from new buildings, now that a recent court case has put all electric requirements for new buildings on hold. Finally, several items are on consent, meaning the City Council may vote for all of them with one action. These include approving the September 5th meeting minutes, allowing surplus water and wastewater equipment to be sold, authorizing the use of city funds to pay for improvements on private property that will help prevent recycled water pipes from being accidentally connected to drinking water pipes and vice versa. Applying for and accepting grants for the police department to fund specialized equipment, education and enforcement programs to reduce underage drinking, and police officer wellness programs. Approving a contract to replace the Fire Station 1 fleet maintenance roof, and extending a contract to operate and maintain the city's public transit system and to offer incentives to attract and retain bus drivers. The San Luis Obispo City Council meeting will take place at City Hall on September 19th, starting at 5:30 p.m. The city encourages your participation, either in person or through two virtual options. To use your computer or mobile device, click on the Zoom link on the first page of the agenda. Then, when it's time for public comments on the item you're interested in, press the Raise Your Hand button. You'll be notified when it's your turn to speak, so you can take yourself off mute. To participate by phone, call 1-669-444-9171 and enter the meeting ID listed on the agenda. Press star 9 to raise your hand when the comment period on your item begins. You'll be notified when you've been unmuted and it's your turn to speak. Whether in person or virtual, you'll have 3 minutes to make your comments. Get the full agenda and attachments at www.slocity.org/agendas.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Stewart and calling the meeting to order. If you are watching remotely, we are doing the remote option for Zoom, and you can give your input, your feedback via public comment by raising your hand and pressing *9 to talk. But first, we'll go ahead and do our Pledge of Allegiance with Vice Mayor Marks.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney, can you report out?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The council did meet in closed session on one matter of labor negotiations with represented and unrepresented groups as noted on the agenda, and there was no reportable action taken on that matter.
Thank you. So today we do not have any proclamations, amazingly enough, but don't worry, next time we have about 4. So our next up will be on the agenda will be City Manager Derek Johnson, and after that we'll have public comment time. So if you've not turned in your half yellow slip, go ahead and turn it into the city clerk now, or Kevin Christians from the city clerk office outside. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, the City
Yes.
Manager reminds me that the council did also move to continue tonight's meeting to a date certain on the 26th at 6 p.m.
Thank you so
In
much.
the council hearing room. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Happy to give the city manager a report tonight. Got a few updates for the community that I want to talk about, and if we advance to the next slide. Work continues on the North Truro Greenway project this week, and we'll be installing some irrigation and landscaping on the bike path of Ramona Drive behind California Fresh Market. This is the piece of property that the city acquired from the Mormon Church, and we're also be installing some concrete medians along the Greenway route along Ramona, Broad, and Truro streets. We continue to do some utility work on Foothill Boulevard and Farini Road intersection to bring water service to Ramona Drive and the shared use bike path. And then we will continue to see some traffic delays. On the pavement management front, as you know, the city is making sizable investment, about $10 million worth of investment overall. We're continuing our part of our arterials paving project that includes Orcutt Road from Fernwood to Johnson, Santa Barbara from Left to Broad, which is a fairly complete reconstruction, and then California Boulevard at Palm and Mill. The work on Santa Barbara paving will continue and is expected to be completed by Tuesday the 26th next week. And so that is night work from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And that's largely, we needed to close the road because that road experiences about 15,000 trips a day. So there's 15,000 vehicle trips that are on that road. And in order to not impact the entire neighborhood and have a lot of cut through traffic, it's the trade-off between night work and cut through traffic in some of those neighborhoods. California Boulevard is also seeing a fair amount of construction at Palm and Mill, and we'll be installing some new curb ramps meeting current ADA accessibility. And then additionally, we'll be installing some curb ramps at Augusta Street from Bishop Street to San Marcos Street. And so these continue to be the type of improvements that we're required to make as part of our complete streets requirements, both under federal and state law. And commuters, should expect to see some delays and throughout the work zones. And if you have any questions, please go to our Slow in Motion website. That is www.slowcity.org/slow in motion. That's SLOINMOTION. You can also email us at slowinmotion@slowcity.org if there's any questions, or you can always reach out to a city engineer and phone us at 805-783-7887, and you can find information. With that, Mayor, I want to just shift our focus to our parking customer service, and I just want to talk a little bit about what's underway in our parking division. We are in a time of really some unprecedented change, and you have one of those items on your agenda tonight. We really want to understand ultimately about the user experience, and so we'll be conducting some user intercept surveys at the pay stations to see, what we can do with our technology and our customer service to making sure that it's a fairly seamless way to ultimately park downtown. We also will be instituting some mobile app surveys following paid sessions, so we can also learn more about the experience. And I want to just alert the community of a couple items that will be coming up. Is one, we have a parking rate study. RFP will be coming to council on November 7th. We are projected to ultimately bring forward a rate study to the council in the spring of 2024. This is something that the council committed to as it looked at rates adjustments, and these rate adjustments that we've instituted as of July 1 are largely in response to the city having to have the necessary funds to take on the obligation of a $50 million debt to build the fourth parking structure. That parking structure is needed. It's been in the plans for about 20 years, and ultimately, inflation and changes to lending rates really changed our ability to fund it with current rates, and we had to raise those rates. We're also making some other customer service changes, enhancing our phone system. We get a fair amount of calls that come into the parking division, and so we have some systems underway. We'll also be providing some door-to-door information sharing, particularly about employee programs, because there are a fair amount of employee programs. We've seen some information that's been posted online about the cost of parking for employees, and we do have programs for $720 a year or $60 a month for employees to park downtown for 10 hours a day. And so there are options for employees to park downtown, and we really want to see our service sector and those employees thrive. We have other types of programs, and we'll have a door-to-door information that will be provided this week. You'll also see some enhanced frequently asked questions on our parking website, and then that website is also undergoing some changes as well. I do want to share with the council some of the data that we've been tracking, because we've been tracking the data fairly closely about what's happening with our downtown in terms of parking. And so where are people parking? You can see from the graphics up here, 67% are finding parking on street, 33% in structures. How are drivers ultimately paying? The majority are paying at the pay stations, and we're seeing a growth in how people are paying on the mobile apps. And I just want to say from firsthand experience, that is the quickest and most efficient way to pay, though we are still seeing some transactions that are happening at the meters, because there are still some coin and credit card meters that are there throughout the system. One of the questions that comes up is, and I think we've heard, is that, well, there's, since the city has instituted these changes, both at 842 Palm and on the street, that there's been a diminishment of number of people coming downtown. And we've been tracking that data closely. And you'll see on the right-hand side how many people are parking downtown. And you can see from July 1 to September 11th of 22 compared to 23, we've seen a 27% increase in the number of people that are parking downtown. And they're parking in different locations, and we think that, and we want to understand that more. We've seen less people parking in Palm Street and in the Marsh parking garage, and moving to 842 Palm Street. We think that's largely because the fact that we have that program is the Park Local program, where there's the incentive if you live in San Luis Obispo County that you get your first hour free after you register for the program. And so we think that that's the basis, but we want to learn more. We do see a lot more people parking on the street. And there's some changes that have happened since last year. We've seen many parking spaces open up after many businesses removed their parklets, and so we have more parking spaces downtown. But overall, we're seeing that more people are just parking on the street in general in terms of out of convenience. We'll be watching this very, very closely over the next couple of months. You'll continue to see council weekly emails from Jennifer Rice in our mobility division. And so we have a series of upcoming communications about parking. I mentioned the frequently asked questions of a full website overhaul in September and October. You're going to continue to see social media posts about parking services. You'll see short videos for mobile apps to be completed this month. And you've also seen a media package that will go out from September through December, and daily radio ads on KCBX, Wild 106.1, 95.3, and a variety of other radio stations, including KSBY. We're also continue to provide some downtown business toolkits and make sure employers and employees have information. We want employees to have the information so they're paying the right amount for the benefits that they afforded under a variety of different programs. And so happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation about parking operations. I want to just pivot here to some other things that are exciting that's happening in the city. We're a full service city, and in our Parks and Recreation program, the September Scramble is just around the corner. And so you can spend the day running a 3/4 mile obstacle course. It's really designed for 5 to 13 years, but adults can register. And if you register by September 30th, you're guaranteed, September 22nd, you're guaranteed a t-shirt. And so the event is from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The last runner on the course by 2:30. And for more information, you can check out slowrecactivities.org and you can learn more about our recreation programs. Moving next, we know how much people love San Luis Obispo and love to be a part of its beauty and its heritage, and we have some exciting ways to come up to volunteer and support your city. And so many in the community may or may not know that we have a volunteer coordinator because we want to harness the energy and excitement around San Luis Obispo and the passion that people have for it. And prior to COVID, we annually held a citywide creek cleanup, and we'll be holding one on Saturday, September 23rd. And volunteers can sign up at www.slowcity.org/creek cleanup. And so it'll be an opportunity here for volunteers to roll up their sleeves along staff and clean up the creeks and support a safer, healthier, and a more beautiful community. The event happens from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. There's 2 locations for people to keep an eye out on and where they want to meet. The first is the creek at Plaza, and the second location is Bob Jones Trail. And we'll meet at the Prado Road entrance down on Bob Jones Trail. And again, you can register to volunteer at slowcity.org/creek cleanup. We need help now more than ever. We had literally thousands of pounds of trash that washed down during the storms this year, and a tremendous amount of debris, and we could really enjoy the service of the community. Other exciting items to announce is that we have our upcoming fall soccer camps for ages 2 to 11. If we move to the next slide. And the first session is from September 16th to the 14th, the second from October 23rd to the 13th, and our last session from November 25th to December 9th. Again, slowrecactivities.org is the place you can find information. These clinics are really designed for kids and youth to learn the fundamentals of soccer and then having a blast doing it. And so we love seeing kids play soccer, whether it's Damon Garcia or any of our other facilities. And this is really just a way to be inclusive. A lot of children are not necessarily ready to jump right into AYSO. And so some skill building gives them the confidence by the time they get out there on the field, they have some basic skills to do so. Jumping back to Bob Jones Trail, I just want to alert the community of a closure that's coming up. Bob Jones Trail will be closed as of last week, and so for fuel management and flood mitigation. So as we've done in the past, we are using goats on a number of city properties for natural fuel mitigation, such as we've done at Cerro San Luis and Terrace Hill. The extension of the closure is through October 1st, because we need to provide some additional safety fencing along the trail that borders the JB Dewar fuel station in particular. This will not impact the Saturday, September 23rd creek cleanup, but you may be enjoying it while the goats are out there as well. Next is, and I think this is something that I've continued to reinforce to the community, is about National Preparedness Month. And so every month in our state is really a month that we need to be prepared for any sort of emergency. And so this year's theme is Take Control in 1, 2, 3 to help empower everyone. And 1 really is about assessing your needs as a family and as a community. Make a plan. Everyone has the responsibility to make their own plan when emergency strikes. And then 3, engage support networks to stay safe when disaster strikes. The city has been sharing this information and this theme to help the community members and the city and also our staff be better prepared for the next disaster for when it strikes, not if it strikes. And so for more information, be sure to follow the fire department on social media or visit www.slowcity.org/prepare. Moving to my last slide of the presentation is just at the last city council meeting, we were happy to have council feedback and brief the community on our police department strategic plan. Chief Scott at the meeting mentioned that this 5-year strategic plan is underway. We've received about 380 survey responses, and we'd love to have some more survey. And so more feedback, and there are 10 days left to submit comments, and you can submit those at the link noted below. If you go to the city's website to the open government portal, you can find the survey and give feedback to our police department. This is really important feedback that we're looking for as we ultimately craft the strategic plan for the police department for the next 5 years. And with that, Madam Mayor, that concludes the city manager report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. And I know that on our screen, there were some limitations as far as being able to see the dates and URLs. So for the PD, is that survey link on their site?
I'm going to ask Mr. Herman just to double check while we're doing this live. I think it's in the OpenGov portal, but he'll confirm, and we'd be happy to send this out to the council.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and council members. If individuals want to go to slowcity.org/open-city-hall, they can have access to that survey as well as any other surveys that are open right now.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you for the really great report. There's so much happening in our community and so much happening on so many different projects. And I just want to definitely say thank you to Jennifer Rice. I thought I saw her out here, but I don't see. There you are. Your emails are incredibly helpful on the weekly for the parking. As I'm sure most of my colleagues are receiving many, many comments, whether in email or phone call or voicemail or grocery store, or I could go on the list. So thank you for the actual data. That's very, very helpful. With the videos, will those videos of how to utilize the pay stations and the parking garage be on the web as well as social media? Yes, okay, thank you. I see Jennifer shaking
Madam
her
Mayor,
head.
just for those who can't see Jennifer in the crowd, yes, the answer is yes.
Great, thank you very much. And as far as the business toolkits, it seems as though this would be along our economic development major city goal to be able to help our businesses. Is that something where you're kind of heading as far as the validations or chaser tickets or tokens?
So we have a lot of different programs that are in place for businesses to take advantage. I mentioned, the 10-hour parking for employees, the Prox cards. We have Chaser tickets that can be used, and our 2 parking garages that we haven't moved yet to quote unquote gateless technology. We also are looking at some other incentives. And so, Madam Mayor, you are correct. Our economic development team is looking at ways to try to make sure that our businesses transition into using a lot of the financial incentives. The bottom line is that businesses can purchase today 1 hour for $1, and they can validate and provide codes to their customers. And so there are service businesses such as salons or other businesses where it may be 2 or 3 hours that you're getting those personal services. And so we're really going to focus in on the businesses that really could take advantage of that, where really your expected stay may be more than the 1 hour that you're afforded under the Park Local program.
Great, thank you so much. Councilmember Shorsman.
Yes, along the lines of the Park Local program, I know that I've gotten a significant number of comments and questions about how to use the Park Local program. When you go into the parking lot, how do you know how much money to pay for, how many hours worth to pay for? It doesn't necessarily show on your ticket that you've gotten that 1 hour free. So just wondering if you can kind of quickly describe how if you are a member of the Park Local program, you should figure that into your purchase.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Madam Mayor and Councilmember Shorsman. I'm going to invite our Deputy Director Rice to come forward, or Matt Horn. Sorry, I didn't see you, Matt. Out of the corner of my eye, Matt's going to come up and talk a little bit about that. I think it's important to note we're the first to have done something like this, so we're literally on the bleeding edge, and so we're trying to develop the technology with our technology partners. But Matt can give you more details.
Oh, thank you. And I conferred with the Deputy Director of Mobility, and so basically it's really simple. So if you want to use Parks Local and you're going to the 842 parking structure, if you want to park for 1 hour and less, just go in, park, do your business and leave. That's all you have to do. If you want to stay for a longer duration, you subtract an hour. So if I'm going downtown, I want to stay for 4 hours, I buy 3. We're working on the technology right now to get a better receipt system and provide more information for you, but basically you get an hour for free.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm happy to see so many people using the program. We've got something like 5,000 people registered, so just want to provide some clarity on how to do that. So thank you. And then the other question I had was on our data, on our parking data. City Manager, you were noting that we've had sort of an increase, it seems like, in use of on-street parking, and figuring into that is obviously the number of parklets that we had in 2022, maybe compared to what we have now. There's more parking spaces available on the street, so that might be part of the reason that the usage seems to be going up. I wonder, do we even have data from, say, before the pandemic, when we had no parklets and there were more parking spaces again, that we can use to compare to kind of get a better idea of what's happening there?
That's a great question. I'll answer to the best of my ability, and then I'll have Jennifer come up. We have some data. Part of the push of why we've moved to the system, and so I'm trying to speak in plain language because you can use lots of acronyms in parking, is prior to the pandemic, we had a dumb parking system. I mean, we literally had meters with coins, and so we didn't have a lot of the data. The new system with the pay stations and the gates and our gateless system, we were required to move into the 21st century because we couldn't get parts for the old system anymore. And so now we have more intelligence about our system than we've ever had. But Jennifer can answer some questions about the data we had pre-pandemic.
Sure. Well, actually, and good evening, Council. Thanks for having me up. I was going to say, great question, and I'll have to get back to you, but I do think that we have that data, and so we can pull it up to reference it to what we have now and see what those trends look like.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Francis.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor and City Manager. Just a couple of quick questions. You had mentioned the door-to-door information sharing for businesses, and I was wondering if you could describe a little bit the nature of what that's going to look like. Are we going to try to literally go door-to-door for every one of the downtown businesses? And then is the intent to leave information so that all of the employees, business owner, then have access to it? Or what would that look like?
Yes, it is. We are planning on doing a physical door-to-door to all of the businesses, and we do have a packet of information, a lot of information, but then we'll be particularly highlighting some of the new pieces that we've added to it. So the employee program, like the long-term parking programs, and then also just an overview of parking in the downtown and how it works and the different options and payments rates and things like that.
Awesome. And if a downtown employee happened to miss that door-to-door or didn't see the packet, do we have a recommendation for the easiest way for them to find out about parking deals for downtown employees? A place on the website or?
Yes, we'll also be putting all of it into different memes that can be posted on social media. And then with our website update that we'll be doing over the next couple of months, that we'll have a business toolkit kind of page that people can go to, and then it'll have all of the information for that as well.
Excellent. And just one more question about parking. I know that we had moved to gateless at one parking garage as sort of a pilot. And I was wondering if we have sort of a timeline for when we might move to gateless at other garages, or are we still doing the pilot for the foreseeable future?
So the second two garages, the Marsh Street and the 919 Palm Street, we were waiting for our CIP staff to be able to have an engineer assigned to that project. That has happened, so they're currently working on that. And right now the project timeline for implementation of that is probably in the fall of next year, of 2024.
Thank you very much for that. And we'll be able to use the Park Local program then at those other garages once they're gateless, is that right?
If the pilot program continues, yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. No more questions about parking. Just wanted, as a complete aside, to put an endorsement in for September Scramble. It is the most fun event, so I hope you all will sign up.
Thank you so much. I look forward to pictures later. Okay, well, now is time for public comment on items not on the agenda. If you have items that you'd like to talk about on the agenda, then we'll have public comment at that point. City Clerk, do we have any comments?
Yes, we have 10 speakers.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to call 3. If you'd please be prepared to come to the mic when it's your turn. Scott Summers, Alan Shagunya, and then Dylan Freeberg.
Hello, my name is Scott Summers. I have lived in the Central Coast for 46 years. I've worked as a chef in several restaurants in this area, the Central Coast. I'm now going to refer to the Goldman Sachs quadruple homicides that happened in the Atascadero at California Manor. I spoke 2 weeks about. This is a few things I left out. I'm sorry. It deals with a general named Lloyd Austin who owned stock in Raytheon and pursued me into Canada when I was a refugee there in 2013 and 14, and his sons, along with Brad Parkinson, the sheriff's father, who's an NSA colonel. They've been using the Raytheon directed energy with William Swanson, the ex-CEO of Raytheon. Also, I was pursued myself to Canada and all of the U.S., also his family. I am asking the City Council for a full Senate investigation to stop this torture. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Alan?
Hello, Council. My name is Alan Shkoya. I'm the general manager of Seeds downtown San Luis Obispo on High Garrett Street. I've seen many of you in there before. It's good to see you, what you all do. Just wanted to take a little bit of time to further address some of the parking issues that we've been having downtown in regards specifically to employees. I know I spoke with Derek Johnson, as well as Christine, as well as Ms. Greg Herman previously about some of these issues, and they help really shed some light that make me understand that the city itself is almost a business that needs to operate in the margins and in the budgets, just like any business downtown. And the parking rate increases were a way to help kind of mitigate that. But it has had some unforeseen consequences on a lot of the downtown workers, and especially a lot of the locals. It comes at a time where a lot of people are really watching their wallets with how they're spending with the rise of cost of living. Obviously, price of gas is very high as well, as we've all seen. And just general overall inflation also coming at the time when many people in San Luis Obispo are going to have to start paying their student loans back next month, which I know is going to be hitting a lot of people in the immediate. But I did want to say thank you a lot to, especially to City Manager Derek Johnson and to City Attorney Christine Dietrich. They spoke with me the other day and have really, the council's really helped shed a lot of these light, or just helped a lot with resolving some of these issues and just giving us more clarity as the businesses downtown. They did send some of the parking people over to us. And, I was able to get one of these here, which is, for those of you who can't see, this is one of the parking passes. I was in and out of the building in 5 minutes. Originally, I had intentions of talking about how things need to change and things like that. But honestly, like seeing a lot of the city council members and, the parking people and hear the programs you guys have walking around and talking about to a lot of these businesses the same way that you came in to my business, it was really helpful. And I just want to say thank you to the council on that part. And there is a solution for that for the locals. But again, I just more than anything wanted to shed light just kind of on the struggles that a lot of the downtown workers have been feeling. I mean, I hear it a lot from my own staff and trying to keep them as happy as I possibly can. As you can imagine, it is a hot topic of discussion for people just trying to come in for a coffee and things like that. So, but overall, just really want to say thank you for the time for let me speak about this, and just wanted to raise awareness on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
After Dylan is Carl Grizzardi, and then it will be Eleanor Schallerman.
Good afternoon. My name is Dylan Freiberg. I am a San Luis Obispo resident of the 400 block of Choro Street. I'm here to implore the City Council to rescind construction of the Choro Street portion of the North Choro Greenway project. This new bike lane will cause over 70 households to no longer be able to park in front of their residences, as well as deliveries. You have daily delivery trucks, UPS, et cetera. They're not going to be able to park. They're going to have to, park in the middle of the street. We have a situation, I feel, where the inconvenience of many residents is being pushed to the wayside for the benefit of a small amount of individuals. We have a situation where private grant funding is being allowed to promote the interests of a small group of individuals under the guise of safety and positive environmental impact. There have been incidents of bicyclist fatalities here in SLO. These have not occurred anywhere near the section of Choro or anywhere where the bikeway is being proposed. These fatalities have occurred on Foothill, Santa Rosa and Foothill intersection, the South Higuera and Industrial Road intersection. Those are dangerous areas for bicyclists. Choro Street is already designated for bicyclists to have the right of way to travel in the vehicle lane, as well as an already existing bike lane. It feels like we're trying to fix something that's not broken. It's unnecessary, and it comes at the expense of the daily intrusion into the lives of dozens and dozens of local households. Many folks are elderly, already limited in their mobility, and now they have to sacrifice the right to park in front of their own house. Also, at what point is something that you don't pedal that goes 35 miles per hour, even a bike? These are motorized vehicles that belong in the car lane. The idea that this project is beneficial for the environment seems to be a fallacy. Just because you're taking a few blocks and creating a perceived safe conduit for bikes to travel, that doesn't really equate to the idea that people are still going to be commuting in their vehicles. They're not going to abandon that. The traffic study conducted showed that Lincoln Street, which parallels Choro, has drastically less traffic than Choro. Now we're taking bicyclists and trying to direct them down a much more busier street than a much safer alternative, which would be Lincoln Street, and completely ignoring the intrusion and massive inconvenience to the residents of Choro Street. We have a situation where people who do not live in that neighborhood and are not affected are using their position in city planning and abusing their power for their own self-interest. We have a situation where a certain individual with wealth is essentially influencing the city planning in complete disregard for the wishes of an entire neighborhood. It's nepotism, it's self-interest, it's disregard for a lot of residences. You know, if I like petting goats a lot and I wanted to come into your neighborhood and make like a petting zoo, and it completely was a hassle, I mean, you wouldn't be into that. That's really not a good analogy, but it just kind of feels like something like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Carl Grisani. I live at the 400 block of Choro Street, and I've been a county resident for over 25 years. The executive summary for the North Choro Greenway agenda. As originally envisioned in the 2013 City Council Obispo Bicycle Transportation Plan, the Anholm Bikeway Plan provides a blueprint to develop a low-stress priority route for bicyclists and pedestrians between the city's downtown core, Foothill Boulevard. These improvements will help create a vital multi-modal link that not only accommodates bicyclists and pedestrians, but prioritizes the safety and mobility for users of all ages and ability levels. This plan supports several key city programs, plans, and policies, including the multi-modal transportation major city goal, the general plan objective, to achieve 20% bicycle mode share citywide, the Climate Action Plan recommendation to increase the use of active transportation modes, and Vision Zero initiative to eliminate traffic-related deaths and severe injuries for all cities' road users by 2030. What I ask is, does the City Council want slow San Luis Obispo to be a 15-minute city? So I've walked the streets of my neighborhood, and the majority of the city does not want this project. I've spoke to over 70 homes. 4 homes out of 70 said they wanted it. That says 66 said they did not, and I will keep petitioning the streets of San Luis in my neighborhood, people signing the petition against the North Choro Greenway agenda. The neighborhood feels like they were bullied, bulldozed over, they were disrespected, they were gaffed off, and they were forced into this project by the City Council and other elites of the community. The bikes drive too fast down my street. They don't stop at stop signs. And the City Council has developed a very dangerous project. If you look into the two-way bike lanes, they're blocked in by 2 curves where there's nowhere to escape for either bike if they're coming in for a head-on collision. Very dangerous for people pulling in and out of their driveways like myself and others on my street. Bikers will be killed. There's no ability for error when a bike is going against a car. Cars drive over. The other day, a car drove over the curb in the new bike lane that Mr. Derek Johnson was speaking about on Ramona. So now that curb is broken. Our tax dollars will have to fix it. And if there was any bikers in that bike lane over a 6-inch curb, they would have been killed. Another accident happened there again yesterday. So 2 accidents have already happened on that new curb that you put in. 93 parking spaces on Choro are gone, plus 1 on Mountain View. 92 on Choro, 1 on Mountain View. It's dangerous. The new corners that have put in, many people are tripping on them. One of my neighbors, Ralph Lewis, has actually tripped and fell, and I know he's talking to the city about it right now. So that's a lawsuit looking to happen. Another gentleman has already alerted me as well. So thank you, City Council. Get rid of it.
Thank you.
Ellen Showerman, Elaine Granassi, and then Daniel Andoto.
Hi, Eleanor Showerman, 875 Mountain View Street. I oppose the proposed Greenway thoroughfare right now. I think it should be modified. The Choro Street is very busy, those people coming down their bike, and I used to ride my bike when I did. I come down Choro, I get on Lincoln, and I go there. There's not much traffic on Lincoln because there's only people that are living there is pulling in and out. Choro, you got traffic going north and south. If it should go through, if you could just kind of keep the green lines not so overblown and the big concrete blocks, because I have tripped over the concrete blocks just even getting out of my car going into the post office downtown. And you have to really look now either way for bicyclists coming up those trails because they really feel they have the right of way. And you just have to be very, very careful. I would propose going up to Mission Street on Lincoln, up to Almond. It's all just little residences. Nobody's else going there except the people that live there pretty much. Now getting on Broad Street to Foothill, that is narrow. Something should be done for the safety factor there. I'm not sure what. Another thing is this went from $3 million to $6 million. That's a lot of money. I would think, is there any way that someone could put in kind of a temporary model that would just for a few months see it work, you know, the orange plastic stuff that you see around, just give it a shot instead of spending all the money to find out that you had to pull all the stuff up like they did years ago with all the bumps and the lumps and the turnarounds up on Choro, and that was a big waste of money. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Elaine Janassi. I live at 462 Choro. The process in which this project was truly crammed down our throats here in our neighborhood, our Ann-Home neighborhood, is just distasteful. We participated in our opinion about not having the bike lanes go down Choro Street and to use Lincoln Street, because I'm a bicyclist as well, and I use Lincoln Street. And yet we were ignored, and this was just steamrolled through. And we've been living for the last 2 months with horrible amount of construction. All of our curbs have been torn out. It has shaken our house. On Lincoln Street and Choro, the cement, I guess it's in the middle of the street, it's a, for water removal. They made that so steep that the whole underside of the front of my bumper is completely scratched, because the first time I went through it, there was no idea that they had made it that steep. And then I had to complain to the city, and then they had to come out and tear it out and redo it. It's been just one thing after another. We have college students that live across the street from us on Mountain View. You know, they each have a car. We have come to very amicable agreements about where we park so that we honor each other. Well, now that you're going to take away all of that parking on one side of Choro, all of those people are going to be on Mountain View that normally park in front of their houses on Choro. I have also had problems downtown with bicyclists going too fast in those new lanes, and I have nearly been knocked over by a bicyclist. And pedestrians, what you have done is you have traded safety for bicyclists against safety for pedestrians. And you're going to be doing the exact same thing down Choro Street. We feel like we did not get enough input on this project, and we feel like this is being crammed down our throats. And I wish that you would put a stop to it and come up with something else.
Thank you very much.
Daniel Andoto, and after that, Louis Dutra, and then Marilyn Gordon.
Good evening, Council. My name is Daniel Andoto. I live at 462 Choro. As you can tell by the people that have spoken before me, people are upset about what's happening on Choro Street. I think they're more cognizant of what is happening because the detrimental effects of the project that's now starting to affect them. It was always going to be detrimental. There was no question about it. That's why we were against it from the beginning. I know you're not going to change things. You're too far down the road. You spent the money. You let out all the contracts. It's going to happen. But what's going to happen after that? And what it is that none of you represent us. No one in the Ann-Home District is represented by this council. And has been requested of the council by a law firm that just recently won a lawsuit, we have to have citywide districts. That's what needs to happen. And I'm willing to work for that. So you've been put on notice by this law firm. You have the chance to act upon it. Please do that, because otherwise I think I have a core of people here willing to start an initiative. Good evening.
Thank you.
Marilyn Gordon, and then our last speaker is Christy Lynch.
Good evening, Council. My name is Marilyn Gordon. I live at 777 Lincoln, so I'm not directly on Choro or Broad. I am here as a supporter of safety for pedestrians, for bicycles, and for drivers of cars. And I urge the Council to step back and look at what has been designed. I know a plan has to be put in place. It has been, but I know we have to have a plan, but I suggest we put it on pause for safety. There have been 3 accidents that I'm aware of in the early stages of creating safety for bicycles. The first one I saw at Broad near California Fresh. The other one I saw on Next Door from a man named Randall Shanks that was at Cerro Lewis Foothills. And the other one were accident that I was sent a picture of, another one at California Fresh. I witnessed and was there for several hours during the first accident, and I saw all the trouble that the bicyclists and the cars had negotiating a very sharp turn, going out and going in. There was a lot of commotion, and I know that people are learning to use it, and I was told that there are going to be flower planters so it will be more visible, but I'd say somebody should get up there before somebody's killed. This is on the corner by California Fresh. And I'd say that's an accident waiting to happen. 2 major things were on my mind that aren't so connected with that. One idea was from the council that the elderly and disabled people would walk in from the adjacent blocks and that inactive people would suddenly get off their couches and start bicycling. I was concerned about that. I asked for the numbers and I didn't get any projection. The other I suggested was the trial period diverting bicycles around the backside of Lincoln, a quiet, wide, little-traveled street before tearing up Choro Street. And the reply I got was it would take 2 minutes longer for the bicyclists. So here we are, millions of dollars later, a neighborhood about to be ripped up, people very upset, and the possibility of creating new challenges too, and dangers for drivers and bicyclists alike. From talking with the people who will be backing out of the driveways on Choro, to the people who will be navigating the street on bicycles, I don't see this as a representation of the people's wishes, and I don't see it as a positive step for safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other?
I submitted mine online.
Oh, thank you. We'll look into that right now. Do you see that, City Clerk? You could fill out a half slip. She doesn't see it online. I apologize for the technological glitch.
Hello, my name is Christy Lynch. I live at 265 Choro. And I, like the rest of the people who have spoken who live on Choro, feel very strongly that this is a really bad idea to put a bike lane and to lose the parking on one side of the street. There are so many reasons this is a bad idea that I'll try to fit in a few of them while I've got the time. First of all, Choro is too fast of a traffic street and it has too many cars going down it to have bicycles being a real valid thing going down that street at all. So moving the bicycles to another street is a top idea. I firmly believe that bicycles don't belong on streets at all. The best cities, the best biking cities in our country have special bike paths that do not go on the streets. They go on the country lanes or they go on the meadows. We have in our town fabulous creeks that could be cleaned up, like Stenner Creek. If we had a bike path that went down Stenner Creek and went into downtown, that would be fabulous. You know, towns like Bend, Oregon have fabulous bike paths. Tahoe, Truckee has fabulous bike paths. Boulder, Colorado, we should copy how they do that. They do not put their bikes with their cars. Now, I live on Choro, and I'm going to have to back out through a sidewalk and bicycles going both directions and then into the street. And that's going to be very dangerous. I'm very nervous about that. And everybody that lives on my street has the same concern and nervousness about it, I'm sure. The cars are going really fast. Bicycles will go fast, and we got people with pushing strollers on the sidewalk, and it's going to be a problem. Also, parking on the other side of the street, anybody that's going to visit me is going to be parking across the street if they can find a spot. I have renters that live across the street from me, Cal Poly renters. There are 5 girls, possibly 8, who live at a house that has parking for 2 spots. So technically, as far as I know, the city is supposed to have an ordinance where if you're a rental unit, you have to have parking on site and then plus 1 spot. So they have 2 spots plus 1. They should only have 3 people living in that house, but they don't. And I know that's a problem all along Choro. So we have a massive amount of renters on Choro with a lot of cars and all their friends. So we have that problem. We also have the people going too fast, the speed of the traffic. Well, maybe that's about all I can say at this point. But anyway, it's a very bad idea. I really hope you guys put a stop to it immediately and find a better solution for bicycling in this town. I, for one, would be happy to work on a bike path route into town. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Our last 2 speakers, Susan Gatlin and John Little.
Good evening. I'm also a Choro resident. I live between Mission and Venable, and I would like to address the issues that the bike path is currently causing. Number one, the curbs that you've put in to direct pedestrian traffic are not wide enough for a double stroller. Sometimes a push 2 in a stroller. Number 2, there's a young man who rides his wheelchair. He can't make the 90-degree turn that you've created with those curbs. Number 3, several seniors have tripped and fallen on those curbs. Number 4, there's a great deal more pedestrians that walk on between Mission on one end and Lincoln on the other end. I encourage you to walk both sides of the street and try to get by on that sidewalk without tripping. So many seniors have resorted to walking in the street because the street is a safer spot for them to do their strolling. And now that option will not be open to them because it will be the bike path on one side and the cars on the other, and it will be much too congested to do that. Also, for those of people that live on the side streets, now that the parking has increased on Lincoln, on Venable, on Mountain View, and on Mission, on the north side of Choro, there are absolutely no streetlights. So now you're packing those streets and you have no streetlights for the people that get out in the dark. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I have one other thing. They've left 2-inch brackets in the curbs, not cut them off. So that's an extreme trip hazard. At one corner, they decided to put a cone on them, but at the others, there's not even a cone on them. So that, and they're metal brackets, and they stick right up out of the sidewalk.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is John Little. I live in the 1530 block of Santa Rosa Street. I bike on Choro Street to Cal Fresh Market, and it's essential that I have a bike lane where I can be free from lethal injury by cars. It's essential that the entire community of San Luis Obispo can get to whatever other spot they need to get to in San Luis Obispo. And I'm in favor of continuing construction swiftly while resolving problems, while avoiding trip hazards, while avoiding any other safety issues. I think this bike lane is going to be a great asset to our community. For the time being, in the very middle of construction, it can definitely feel like it's just a worse situation overall. About 3 weeks ago, I was at a really lovely block party on the Morrow Street Bikeway. It was a lovely time. It felt safe. No cars were present. Just 30, 40 people hanging out, squirting water guns and barbecuing, and it was a great time. And I'd like to think that more pedestrians, I heard someone say there's more pedestrians now. I'm already starting to see that that can be a pretty good thing in the future of Choro Street. All communities in SLO, I believe, should be having more bike lanes. And while this community on the Choro Street Greenway is, it may feel like it is under being steamrolled by the rest of the city and people that voted for it. I believe that all communities should do their part and adopt a bike lane, and many have, and I hope that many more will. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, our final speaker is Louis Dutra.
My name is Louis Dutra. I've been living here in San Luis Obispo for over 60 years. I've seen a lot of changes, some good and some not so good, especially taking away your parking space in front of your house. This is totally wrong and inconsiderate of the city planners. This would devalue your property value. If you wanted to sell it, who would want to buy a house if you can't park in front of your house?
Thank you very much. That was the last speaker?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank everyone for speaking your mind and sharing your thoughts with us. We greatly appreciate it. City Manager, I don't know if you can share anything on construction and just kind of like the process of it, I guess, in the sense, I mean, when we have safety hazards in the middle of construction, I understand there's some ways to cover like the brackets that are standing up and that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd ask our Public Works Director to come up in just a moment, but I want to talk about how, if there's anything that's considered to be unsafe during construction. It is an active construction site, and so we're asking people to, that it is an inconvenience while we go through all of this construction. And we'll certainly take a look at some of the issues that are raised tonight. But I'd ask the Public Works Director to come up. One clarification I did want to make is that I believe that one speaker did say about the requirements for number of on-site parking spaces for renters and for ADUs. And so that is not a requirement in the city. State law has preempted the city, so we cannot require more parking spots on site if there's renters. So that law has changed. But with regards to some of the construction and details, Mr. Horn can respond to the council.
Can you also touch base on the streetlights too?
I don't know if we'll be able to do streetlights, but I have some other information. I was kind of, there was speakers. I'm sorry, Matt Horn, Public Works Director, City of San Luis Obispo. As the speakers were going through, I was kind of looking at some of my notes from some of our previous meetings to try to remind myself on all the things that we did for North Truro Greenway. And of course, the North Truro Greenway is a Tier 1 or the highest benefit projects in our active transportation plan. And that's some of the things that we want to do the most to try to connect people from the northerly section of the city to the downtown. And so the general cost of construction is about $6 million, and about 56% of that is directly related to pedestrian, 31% is for bicycle, and motor vehicles, about 13% of that cost. So predominantly it's largely going to pedestrian activities. We are in an active construction area. So I believe the city manager has written an article here, or it should be coming out soon, about Excuse Our Dust. We are working the area, trying to protect everyone while we're actively removing, replacing, and installing new public improvements. So people are starting to use some of these public improvements that are half-built. Some of them are, some of them are safe, some aren't as delineated, they're not the final product. So if you're tripping over some items, it's likely because we haven't put the reflective paint to differentiate the different gray colors. It also should be noted that this is the contractor's construction area. We have a contract with our contractor. The contractors assume the area and it's building the project as safely as possible. So have heard about the metal objects sticking up probably for signposts. We'll make sure our inspectors go out there and take a good look for safety hazards to try to correct. The thing we have to remember about doing construction and infrastructure, it's not a closed area. So we share that entire area. We'll put up information signs, cones to try to protect the public and everyone who's using the public right of way. But the public also use the public right of way, and they can move the devices around. So at one state and time, things will change dramatically, one way or the other. It's funny, our Deputy Director of Mobility, Jennifer Rice, was actually our project manager for the North Truro Greenway, and I was pulling up one of her old staff reports. And when we awarded the project, she went through it and did a great job of kind of outlining all the different public meetings this project went to, and there were quite a few. And so, of course, so there's 8 different items, and I'll try to go through them really quickly. But in 2015, parents from Bishop, Peak, and Pacheco Elementaries petitioned the city to install a bike path from downtown and into the school area. We've had information about this project up on project-specific websites to make sure everyone kind of knew what was going on. We've had 2 community surveys that took place during the design process, 5 community meetings specific to the Greenway project, 2 community meetings at the Bishop, Peak, and Pacheco Safe Routes to School Plan, 1 active transportation committee, 1 planning commission meeting, and 5 city council meetings to try to shape, mold, and get the project where we want it to be. So that's about all the information I have to share for you with the North Truro Greenway. We'll get out there and make sure that we believe it's safe for everyone. And it's been a journey, and we're almost there. Thank you.
Great. And just one question for you. Just hearing about the wheelchair, for example, that concerned me a great deal. Of course, that's the whole point of the ADA curbs. So I'm just wondering if there's in the middle of the construction, if it's maybe not as safe, is there more instruction that can be put out, such as the different route to take, kind of like almost a detour for pedestrians, for lack of a better word, for construction purposes?
Sure, absolutely. So it's part of our obligation during construction is to a detour, or part of the contractor's obligation during construction to detour the community members around the construction site and make sure that there's a safe and accessible route. So safe and accessible is what we would consider safe and accessible, also what the code requires for safe and accessible. So that being said, a particularly wide 2-person stroller may be wider than the code requires for accessible at this point in time. That being said, our inspectors will go out there, make sure that everything's detoured appropriately. Some of the ADA improvements are half built. And so there could be a situation where we have one of the ramps on the side of the street, but not the receiving ramp. And so again, the project's half built. We are in the process of actively improving the area, but I don't specifically know the width that we're receiving. And
Madam Mayor, if I could hop in, I think we'll go out and take a look and see if the geometries are sufficient for a wheelchair. I think that was the point of the speaker, to be able to navigate the radii of the 90-degree turn. We'll take a look at that and see if it meets the specifications that are in the code. So these facilities are spec'd out to be able to accommodate those type of turning movements, and we'll go out and make sure that they were installed pursuant to our standards. I think what Mr. Horn is pointing out is that some of them, they may not accommodate, a double wide stroller and just by pure design, but we'll look at that as well. And we're happy to connect with the neighborhood.
Great. Thank you so much. Councilmember Pease.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank our speakers for coming out, recognize the uncomfortable situation both during construction, and just recognize that we didn't agree, right? We did not all agree. There were a ton of meetings. I appreciate Mr. Horn kind of enumerating all that conversation. And so it is not surprising that there are still going to be some folks who aren't supportive of the project in the current design. So I just want to recognize that. We had a full, messy democratic process with lots of meetings and lots of design changes and looking at all kinds of alternatives, and a split vote amongst the council at the time. And so there was a process. I think going forward, in recognition of that democratic process, and finishing it up, seeing how it goes. And we recognized, if after 2 years or some appropriate amount of time that things aren't working the way that we thought that they would, then absolutely we'll look again. So I appreciate people staying engaged and just recognizing that a messy decision, but here's where we are, and appreciate everybody staying engaged.
Thank you, Councilmember Pease. Not at this time, so sorry. I appreciate your comments and absolutely agree. Well, democracy can be messy, and when it's a 3-2 vote at that time, it clearly showed that not everyone totally agreed, which meant that it was difficult.
Yeah.
So, but the goal is to have safety in the end. Getting people to school and work in the end is our goal throughout the entire city. And I also do want to see construction be safer. So if that's something that our contractors are not doing, that our city go out and look at that. So thank you so much. Now is time for consent. But before we go to consent, it is 6:44. We're going to take a 10-minute break. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for waiting for us in our break. And we're going to go ahead and get started again. So next we have the consent agenda. And so if you have any comments for the consent agenda, this is the time to get your slip into the city clerk. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and get started. And City Clerk, do you have any public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you very much. And I believe a few of my colleagues have some recusals. Vice Mayor Marks?
Yes, I'm going to recuse myself on item 6D, which is the funding for recycled water user site improvements, because it may influence San Luis Ranch, and I live there, so.
Got it. Thank you so much. Councilmember Pease.
I would like to pull the meeting minutes for a possible edit. And I have a quick comment on item 6G. Should I make my comment now real quick? The transit one?
Oh, the 6G, yeah, you can go ahead and make your comment.
I just want to say thank you. I'm really appreciative. I know we've been struggling to get drivers, to train drivers, to retain drivers for our bus routes. And I feel like it's so critical for us to, as you know, in alignment with a conversation we've just been having. It's hard to ask people to pull away from their cars if we don't have adequate non-car options. So I feel like really putting in the effort and the funding for a transit program is critical. And so I thank our Public Works and city manager for moving that forward quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councilmember Shorsman.
Yeah, just a quick comment also about item 6E. Just wanted to point out, a lot of times the consent agenda items have things where we're asking for grants for things, and we really love our team to go out and seek money to do some of the great programming in our city. And this is one of those items where the police department is asking for some grant funds to do some really important work. So just always want to draw attention to that and echo the comment that you made about the transit item, because I know we've been talking about how we're going to get all these drivers on board that we need. We're still about 14, I think, down or something like that. So, so hopefully some of these incentives help.
Thank you so much. And so it looks like we'll pull 6B, and then we will go forward on consent agenda minus 6D, so that Vice Mayor Marks can recuse herself. I would also like to just add a couple comments. 6C, I just want to thank the Utilities Department for being, again, conservative with monies and utilizing all the opportunities to take our surplus equipment and be able to resell the refurbished, the we don't need it anymore, the we're moving on to the new wastewater reclamation facility and don't need these older products, but someone else can. So that's absolutely fabulous. And I'll leave my comments for 6D out since you're recusing on this. But I do also want to echo my colleagues on 6G. Since I ran 5 years ago, buses were one of the things that I had really wished we would have more of, more frequent trips, and seeing how difficult it's been, of course, after COVID on top of it, to be able to obtain and retain employees for the buses is so difficult. And I'm just so thankful that there's extra work trying to hire and retain staff for the buses. So thank you very much. And thank you for the ABC work as well to the Slope PD. All right, so we'll go ahead and still no public comment, right, City Clerk?
That's correct.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll go ahead and I'll just go ahead and move forward with A through G minus 6B and minus 6D.
I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda minus those items.
Great. Councilmember Francis.
Sorry, was that a second? I second.
Thank you. City Clerk, could we have roll, please?
Vice Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Councilmember Pease?
Yes.
Councilmember Shorsman?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, and the motion passes 5-0. Let's go ahead and move forward to 6B, which is the minutes. Councilmember Pease.
Thank you so much. At the last meeting, we, for the Prado Road overpass, we talked about adding a staff direction. The minutes currently note that that we provided direction to staff to explore ways to reduce embodied carbons as feasible. I think our discussion was a little more strongly worded, and so I would propose that we provided direction to staff to incorporate leading strategies to maximally reduce embodied carbon as feasible. And I went back and listened to the meeting again to make sure that reflected it was an approximation at the time, but if folks are okay with that language, I'd like to just amend the minutes.
Okay, and I thought it was specifically around the cement, no?
The embodied carbon of the project.
Okay.
It is it's going to be primarily the concrete. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that. Do we need a second for the amendment? Councilmember Shorsman.
I'll second the amendment.
Great, thank you so much. City Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Pease?
Yes.
Councilmember Shorsman?
Yes.
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, the motion passes 5-0. So we'll move.
Do I need to leave the room for this? Are you discussing it?
Does anyone have any discussion left? Yes or no? I have a comment on it, but no, like yes or no comment, so you don't need to. As far as 6D, I just wanted to just do a little quick highlight. There were a couple emails that came through and comments around recycled water, and just want to make sure that people know that in this item 6D, we are not looking to sell recycled water. And so I just wanted to make sure that was really clear. If there's more questions people have, feel free to email us and we'll go ahead and get more into detail, or you could just email the entire utility staff and they can help that too. Well, without any further ado, Councilmember Francis.
I move to approve 6D.
Great. Councilmember Shorsman.
I'll second it.
Great, thank you. And City Clerk, can we have roll call?
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Councilmember Shorsman?
Yes.
Councilmember Pease?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, the motion passes 4-0 with 1 recusal. Thank you so much. So now we will continue talking about parking. We will discuss the awarding of the construction contract for the Cultural Arts District Parking Structure Project. And I believe we have Public Works Director Matt Horn and Engineer 3, Madeline, and I will ask for you to say your own last name so I don't totally mess it up.
Casenta.
Casenta, thank you so much. And I'll just say to the public, if you have comments on the Cultural Arts District, please make sure you get in your public comment to the city clerk.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for having us. This is really a celebration of a milestone event tonight for the city. So tonight we are here for the Cultural Arts District parking structure with the consideration of awarding a construction contract for this project. Tonight, of course, we have Madeline giving the presentation. We have Brian Nelson, Jennifer Rice in the crowd to help us out. And we have Emily Jackson here as well if there's any like big financial questions. Madeline was so kind to allow me to actually introduce the first couple of slides, but if we jump to the second one, the big picture things we're here to do tonight is to, one, approve the plans, also two, to appropriate the funds for construction and award the contract. If you can go to the next slide, this is a milestone event for the city, because if you look at how long we've been working on this parking structure, it's about 20 years or 2 decades we've been marching down the path to build a parking structure here with various different types of approval, from budgeting to RFP solicitation, EIR. So we've been working down this path for quite a while, and we're here today. And so with that, I'll pass the presentation off to Madeline. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, City Council, thank you for having me. This is my first time presenting to you guys, so thank you so much. I'm very enthusiastic about this project. The Cultural Arts District parking structure marks a huge step towards enhancing the vibrancy and accessibility of what we are referring to unofficially as the Cultural Arts District along Monterey Street downtown. This project will provide residents and visitors ample parking for the future Slow Rep Theater, Children's Museum, History Museum, Museum of Art, and 93 businesses within a 3-block radius. This project will also implement the downtown conceptual plan while offsetting the reduction in on-street parking. The downtown conceptual plan will be doing all street improvements on Palm Street, Napomo, and Monterey. This includes new ADA ramps, crosswalk beacons, street paving, storm drain, undergrounding overhead utilities, downtown lighting, sidewalks, and so we're looking forward to seeing that in the area. You'll see in blue the location of the future Slow Rep Theater on the same lot, and then the liner building shown in the dark blue area. We're also building an outdoor shared plaza to connect the pedestrians between the parking structure and Slow Rep Theater. This will also give access to Monterey Streets and the downtown core. The parking structure itself is a 4-story, 5-level parking structure. It is 397 parking stalls with 32 bike parking stalls. There will be 41 level 2 EV charging stations on day 1 that are operational, and we're installing conduit to expand to 135 chargers for future EV stations. The parking structure will also have solar rooftop arrays that will offset some of the parking structure's electrical usage. Just a little background and where we stand today. The project is a phased project. Phase 1 started in January of 2022, which was relocation of overhead facilities and rerouting those around the block. You can see in the picture that they are still standing, so we're getting those down shortly. Phase B started in May of 2023 with demolition of the existing structures, demolition of the parking lot, and soil remediation on site. We're expected to have both Phase 1A and 1B completed by early November of this year. And Phase 2 is what we're primarily talking about today, which is construction of the actual parking garage and off-site improvements. The city took a slightly unique path towards obtaining a contractor. We went through a request for qualifications due to the complexities of the project. Because of this, we pre-qualified 6 bidders, and we received 2 bids out of that, giving us our low bidder. Swinnerton Builders and Baumel Construction were the 2 bidders on the project. Swinnerton Builders being the low bidder at $41,070,044. This was significantly or a good amount lower than our engineer's estimate, which was great news to our project and to the city. Because this is such a large project and the funding was complex, I'm going to hand off the next couple of financial slides to our finance director.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here this evening to support the progress on this project that's before your council this evening, but to also provide you with a quick update on where we actually landed compared to what we had estimated when we came to your council in mid-August to seek authorization to issue debt to finance this project. So I'm really happy to report that we have successfully sold bonds. We officially closed on the sale last Wednesday. So the proceeds from the bonds are already sitting with our trustee at US Bank, and we are ready to spend the money as the invoices begin to roll in. So just like the construction, the closing last Wednesday, of course, was a significant milestone on the financing side of things, and just want to provide a bit of a highlight of where we landed, again, compared to what your council authorized on August 15th. So as you will recall, when we came before your council a couple meetings ago, we sought authorization to give us flexibility to issue up to $50 million of debt to finance construction of the structure, as well as the potential refunding of the 2012 series bonds. As we discussed on the 15th, the primary purpose of the refunding was not to generate debt service savings, but more to free up the Damon Garcia Sports Field, which was had previously been encumbered to support the 2012 financing. So I'm happy to report that we had really solid market conditions the day that we went to sale on August 30th. City Manager Johnson, I know, touched on that a bit in the last council meeting, but wanted to confirm for the council that in addition to seeking financing for the structure itself, we were able to successfully refund the 2012 bonds. And like we talked about when your council provided authorization to issue the debt. That was a really big milestone and a key piece as we look forward to future potential debt issuances for the Prado interchange or other projects that we may have coming, because the Damon Garcia sports field has quite a bit more value in it than what we need to secure the remainder of the debt service on the 2012 series bond. So that was a really good news item. In addition to seeking authorization for the $50 million, your council authorized interest cost not to exceed 5.25%, and happy to let you know that we came in significantly under both of those targets. So the total par amount for the bonds, including both the parking structure financing as well as the refunding, was the $45.8 million, and we achieved a true interest cost of 4.35%. I want to note also, because I think it bodes, it's good for this project, but bodes very well for future potential debt issuances, that we had about 3 times the amount of interest in the bonds that we actually needed to sell. And so that's a really good indicator of the investor community's interest in San Luis Obispo and their support of this project, but also I think bodes really well for future potential issuances that we have coming in the next several years. Can you go to the next slide? So this slide is specific to the financing for the parking structure itself. So of the $45.8 million, about just under $44 million is specific to the parking structure itself. And because we get this question a lot, I wanted to provide a little bit of insight into what it means to sell $44 million, but to actually receive $47 million in order to finance the structure. We were able to achieve that because the bonds sold at a premium, meaning that investors were willing to and required to pay more than 100 cents on the dollar for the debt that we were selling. And so that puts us in a good position. We achieved a lower cost of borrowing with a lower interest rate. And while that's great news, it doesn't have a truly material impact on the cost to repay the debt service over the next 30 years. So that decreased interest rate really only decreased our costs over the next 30 years by about $200,000, but we take the wins where we can get them. So a bit of good news there. There's other statistics related to the bond sale on the slide here. Happy to take questions at the end if there are any. And then just to note, consistent with what we had reported back in August when we sought authorization, we have landed on a level debt service. Our first payment will be due in June of 24, $1.5 million. And then every June 30th for the next 29 years after that, we will be paying an additional $2.8 million. Total repayment of the bonds is going to be just specific to the parking structure, just over $86 million over the next 30 years. So that those are the updates I wanted to provide. And again, happy to take any questions at the conclusion of the presentation if there are any.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Emily. Should council wish to move forward with today's recommendations, this is the anticipated timeline for the project. Currently, we are demoing the parking lot, and that should be completed by November. You can see the little sticker, you are here, September 19th. This is the council award the contract to the parking structure, which would allow us to do a groundbreaking and start of construction mobilization of Swinnerton Builders in early November. We're looking at a project completion, including frontage improvements, by the end of 2025. As we ramp up construction, we also ramp up our communication. We're working with Verdant Marketing to make sure that the public is kept informed about the project. We have been doing presentations to the Parking Steering Committee, monthly emails, mailers to the community, notifications to the local high school. We have a speaker spot on Good Morning SLO this month. social media posts, and more. So we're trying to make sure that the word is out and that communication lines are open. In addition to that, we have been working with our partners, Slow Rep, the Children's Museum, History Museum, and the Museum of Arts to create this screened fence artwork. This artwork will be presented around the property frontage for the duration of construction. We hope that this artwork will present the vibrancy that we hope the Slow Rep Theater and the parking garage will bring to the area. So just highlighting again, in order to move forward with the timeline, we're asking the City Council to approve the plans and specifications for the project, adopt a resolution appropriating $47 million in bond proceeds to the project, and awarding the construction contract for the Cultural Arts District parking structure to Swinnerton Builders in the amount of $41,070,044. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
Thank you so much. I feel like it's the end of signing off for your mortgage for a house or student loans, and looking at it all is quite amazing. Councilmember Shoresman.
Thank you. Yeah, it does feel like it's hard to believe that we're actually going to put shovels in the ground pretty soon on a project that's been like 20 years in the making. So thank you for the report, and thank you for all your work. And I know there's still a lot of work to come. My main question is about, we've talked about this some a little bit tonight with other projects, but the messiness that comes with a huge construction project like this that's going to span over almost a couple of years, and impacts to the roadways around the project, impacts to the bike lanes, impacts to pedestrian sidewalks, and you touched on the great artwork that's going to be on some of the construction fencing that'll make the place look a little bit nicer while all this is happening. But will there be any other more significant impacts to pedestrian areas, roads around the project that will need to detour traffic or provide walkways or any of that kind of stuff?
Primarily, while they're doing on-site work, we're looking at doing some traffic control, primarily for deliveries. Probably the public will be most impacted in the right-of-way when we move to off-site work. So when we move into the street, that's when we're going to start closing sidewalks and doing detours potentially. We'll try and maintain traffic through the project site through the duration of the project, and we'll alert the public as soon as possible when we know those things are coming. But working through project schedule and traffic control plans will be part of the project. Yeah.
And will that public engagement also include the businesses that are in that surrounding area so they know what to expect and when their roadway in front of their business will be blocked and other sorts of impacts?
Yeah, definitely. We've been heavily involved with the downtown area and specifically within the perimeter of our project, and even doing in-person meetings with them, check-ins, just to make sure they know what's going on, but definitely alerting them when there's significant traffic control.
Great. I think the earlier you can do that kind of stuff, and early and often, as they say, the better it's going to be for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add, we have a full communication plan. Verdun has put it together. There's a sizable amount of budget. And so there's strategies, messages, and a calendar associated with different events. I think one of the questions you asked, which is unique, and I just want to let the community know, there's a couple unknowns. One, you may remember the Monterey Place project, which is directly across the street. That recently is under new ownership, and so we've been speaking with the owners. They may move forward with construction at the same time, so that's an interesting piece. And then you have the hotel that's been entitled the Creamery, and we've been having some conversations about that project. So we could see a convergence of two big private projects along with this, and so we're going to be nimble and adjust, but there may be just a confluence of construction projects that come together that we're going to have to really kind of carefully orchestrate in terms of traffic management and overall disruption to the area.
I think that's one of the hardest things for the small businesses, the traffic management, but also the communication of they're open and how to get through, working through that. Councilmember Pease?
Thank you. So speaking of construction, the Liner Building, is the anticipation that the Liner Building will be completely after the construction of the parking structure, so that the parking structure will finish the flat work, et cetera, where that building will be, and that's to be determined?
City Manager Johnson, did you want to pipe in?
I'll let Matt, maybe you can answer the technical part, and then we can talk about the kind of entitlement strategy that will happen for that project.
Right, and then the answer is yes. The intent is to build the parking structure and get everything ready for the Liner Building to come at a later time. So all the public improvements, all the, the entire project that was shown up on the screen, to construct that with our construction contract and have it ready for the Liner Building.
And so the Liner Building, in other words, would just need to kind of saw cut the new flat work in order to put their own foundations, and we're not trying to do the undergrounding.
Correct. We are not trying to assume the foundation and the construction means and methods for that. It's not a perfect science, but it's better to allow the Liner Building to come after the fact and trying to integrate it into it.
Yeah, okay.
And Madam Mayor and Councilmember Pease, thanks for the question. I think the intention is now that we have certainty when this project is moving forward, is for us to then work on the entitlement documents through community development, and then prepare that through the process under the Surplus Lands Act and make it available for affordable housing providers or other providers, and then entertain some competitive proposals and have that project already entitled, so that when the parking garage is done, the affordable housing project can slide in afterwards, and we'll have all the kind of as-built done as well, that then the design team can then rely on in doing their engineering and design work.
Great, thank you.
All right, without further questions, we'll move to public comment. City Clerk.
Okay, we have 6 public comment. Patty Thayer, Dave Christie, and Diane Clausen.
Good evening. My name is Patty Thayer.
Hold on 1 second.
Director?
Sorry. Oh, it wasn't on your mic.
Oh, sorry. There it is. Hello. I can probably project, but that's okay. My name is Patty Thayer, and I'm the Development Director at SLO Repertory Theater. I'm speaking on behalf of Managing Artistic Director Kevin Harris, who couldn't be here this evening, and the 18 dedicated individuals who comprise the staff of SLO Rep. For reasons that are admittedly self-interested, we encourage you to approve the contract for construction of the garage. It's true that our project to build a new theater for SLO Rep is tied to your plans to build the Cultural Arts District parking structure. We couldn't be more proud to play a supporting role in realizing the city's long-held vision to complete this parking structure and to establish a thriving arts district. SLO Rep's current home, the old city library, has served us well, and we are so grateful for our years there. But we've grown a great deal. Our audience has grown, and more importantly, our audience's expectations of SLO Rep have grown, and they expect more of us. I believe that's one of the main reasons we've been able to persuade so many donors to contribute millions in private dollars to partner with the city and build this new venue. Some of our donors are giving because they love theater. Some are giving because they believe in the city's vision that the entire project, the parking structure, the theater, the arts district, and the ensuing economic impact will help realize the city's very compelling vision to make sure our downtown remains appealing to residents and visitors alike for the long term. Our donors have responded to our message that a new venue for SLO Rep is about more than building a wonderful place for great theater, although that's fabulous. SLO Rep's project is a civic project. It's an investment in our regional infrastructure, one that will deliver positive economic impact while also entertaining, inspiring, and feeding our souls. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for your encouragement and support of the arts in general and SLO Rep in particular. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dave Christie, a city resident who recently retired from a 36-year career in universities, including 9 years as Dean of the Orfalea College of Business at Cal Poly. I've tried to focus my community activities on economic vitality, economic development. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight to encourage you to take the next step toward completing this long-planned parking structure. It's been 2 decades. I remember when Linda Wilson was showing me real estate in town when I arrived in 2004, and she pointed to 919 Palm, the new parking structure. So I know that this has been a long time. Since then, we've had 2 fantastic new hotels, wonderful tourist assets built on surface parking lots in our downtown core. So the need for continuing to develop parking assets is important. My advocacy from the project also stems from what I believe to have been a very careful, community-involved visioning process that the city has conducted. And there's a clear idea that we need to provide parking in order to be able to serve residents and tourists that are so important to our economy. You've studied how city residents and visitors actually use the downtown, what they're looking for in the downtown: well-patrolled, safe streets, access to entertainment and dining and shopping, and parking. Add to this, the city's Envision project is not just this parking deck, but also the theater, the cultural arts district. This is a bigger plan than a parking structure. I think that it's clear that some people are unhappy about the increased rates for parking, but we have followed a philosophy that users pay, and that's what parking is going to cost to maintain. And I think that you have a good plan, and we should proceed with it. So I also think that off-street parking is, in the long run, for a town like ours, more sensible. We are a city of one-way streets, and when people are circling, looking for a place on street that they might be convenient and like to be able to park where on the curb where they are used to, it's just not a realistic option in the future. So the deck will never be cheaper to build. The cost will never go down. I urge you to continue on this trajectory of moving forward. And in my 9 seconds, if you look on Marsh Street at the existing surface lots, they're all affiliated with contiguous, oversized banks that are not going to be there in a few years.
Thank you so much.
After Diane is Jim D'Antona, Barry Rands, and Chris Spencer.
Good evening, and it is a special evening. My name is Diane Clausen. I live in San Luis Obispo. I also serve as Vice President of the SLO Rep Board of Directors. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you tonight, and I am here to urge you to approve the contract to build our new parking structure. The structure has been central to the city's long-held vision about how it will grow and accommodate new businesses at the western end of downtown, while also establishing a bona fide, thriving cultural arts district. The parking structure has been a promise on the books for a long, long time, as has been said several times tonight. While some folks believe that the garage is being built only so that SLO Rep can build a new theater, we all know that this is not true. What is true is that the city invited SLO Rep to raise private funds to build a new theater on city land. The city will own the theater, SLO Rep will operate it, and private money will pay for the vast majority of SLO Rep's project and building. We have worked diligently to meet the city's fundraising milestones. I am so pleased to report that we are already 85% of the way to the $15.3 million goal, and we are confident that we will meet our target by the end of 2024. SLO Rep eagerly accepted the city's invitation, not just because we want and need a modern home for our work, we eagerly accepted the invitation because the city has a compelling vision about what downtown can be. We at SLO Rep couldn't be more proud to play our part in this partnership to help the city ensure that our downtown remains not merely relevant, but exciting for generations to come. So to repeat, we urge you to approve the contract for the building of the Cultural Arts District parking structure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Jim D'Antona. I'm the president and CEO for the SLO Chamber of Commerce. I could simply just say ditto. That was very well said, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna use up my time. I'm here to talk about the Cultural Arts District Parking Structure Award before you tonight. The project has been under consideration for some time, that has been shown. In fact, as we were looking through chamber motions, we discovered that in 2005, the chamber encouraged the city council to move forward with expedience on a completed design for and construction of the proposed Palm Napomo parking structure, saying that the timely completion of this project is an essential benefit to the ongoing improvements in the area, including the new Children's Museum now under construction. Again, in 2007, we expressed support the city moving forward with the process of building a Palm Napomo parking structure. And in 2019, the Chamber Board again made a motion to support the city moving forward to build a Palm Napomo parking structure, as well as the partnership for the adjacent SLO Rep Theater building. This, like all chamber policies and positions, was informed by our economic vision, Imagine SLO, in which we commit to recognizing the economic, social, and intrinsic value of art, encouraging public-private investment to create access to an abundance of art and cultural opportunities, and recognizing the role that arts and cultural activities play in expanding greater community participation, connection, cultural understanding, and economic advancement. The SLO Chamber believes the now imminent development of this project will unlock the economic opportunities to this side of the city of SLO. The addition of this parking structure will also help overall parking bandwidth that will allow even more housing opportunities for our downtown area, which is imperative and we must tackle. The board of directors of the SLO Chamber is asking for one last vote, hopefully, to bring the cultural arts parking structure to fruition. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm Barry Rands. I with the SLO Climate Coalition, and I'm the Green Transportation Program Lead, and really excited about this contract and getting started on this parking garage. And one of the features that you're probably aware that I'm really happy about is all the electric vehicle charging stations. There are 41. That's a lot. We've got 19 over at Marsh Street Garage, and those are already full for a lot of events. I was just over there for farmers market, and it was packed. So I have 3 comments on the EV charging. First of all, this is probably 41 chargers. I'm thinking this is at least $500,000 of that project, and I'm curious if you got outside funds for that, because I know there's a lot of money for vehicle charging equipment, and so hope you've tapped into those. Second of all, I had made when this was under seeking public comment, I'd made a suggestion that you'd have at least 2 rapid chargers or DC fast chargers, level 3 chargers in there. And I don't see that that's part of the project, and maybe an explanation why, but it's not too late. You can always do a change order. And then the last thing is this is going to be a great opportunity for people that are renters that can't charge at home to be able to charge their cars. So please accommodate overnight parking in this garage. Like the Marsh Street chargers, you can only charge there for 4 hours, and then your rates go up like $4 an hour or something like that. So make sure that those are accommodated, and maybe even consider putting in just electric outlets, because people have their own chargers that they can just plug into electric outlet, and if they're charging overnight, that almost fills your car. So those are 3 suggestions I have, and thanks again for this great project. And also another nice thing about it is that more cars off the street, more room for bikes.
Thank you so much.
Our last speaker is Chris Spencer.
Hello, City Council. I just needed a few quick moments here. My name is Chris Spencer, and I represent Swinnerton Builders, the contractor on the project. And we're excited to be a part of this. We recognize and understand the community impacts, the challenges it's going to bring, and we truly want to be partners. And we're excited to partner with you guys and make this a successful project. Another point too is, we have a lot of employees at our firm that have went through this school. It's one of the best recruiting places, we come to for talent, and the best human capital we get is from this community. You guys truly do have a special community, and we're excited to be a part of it. So let's get it done.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Well, truly seeing partnership in some of our other projects from construction has been very, very successful. So look forward to that. Any other comments from the council? Councilmember Pease.
Well, I wanted to see if staff had any particular response about applying for grants or the other charter questions, if that's all right to ask those.
Sure. Madam Mayor and Councilmember Pease, we will certainly explore if there are opportunities to defray some of the costs for this. This project's been in the pipeline. We certainly think that, we're in the position to take advantage of some of the tax credit, whether it's through the Inflation Reduction Act or through infrastructure bill. So we'll certainly work with our builder and work with 3CE to make sure we maximize those. I did want to ask Deputy City Manager Greg Herman to talk a little bit about our fast chargers. We're excited. We're inching closer to having some of those come online in various different locations, because we agree that the 41 are not enough and there'll need to be some more. And so Greg can talk about that.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. So at council direction, we've been able to enter into an agreement to install additional public charging locations at various locations around the city. That includes our Amtrak station, Santa Rosa, Cayo Joaquin, and YMCA. We're currently working on the interconnection request with PG&E right now. Our target date is to have those installed by the end of the calendar year, but again, that's dependent upon our interconnection with PG&E. But that's a separate work effort to help address some of that need as well.
Thank you very much. And as far as the grants, as always, we are always a fan of extra free money, in addition to the additional $3 million y'all saved us. Councilmember Pease.
Thanks. And then just a couple of comments. Anytime, a successful bid and successful funding, it's like, thank you to all the behind the scenes work that makes that happen. Really appreciate it. I'm thrilled to have Swinnerton be the contractor for this. When I heard that news, I was like, I'm an architect by trade, and it's like, I know this group. I love this group. So for those who don't know, their California contractor's license number is 92. That's how long they've been in business. So really happy to have you in our community, and looking forward to supporting this.
Great, thank you. And going back to the earlier comment that I was hoping was still going to be answered was around the level 3 chargers and additional outlets. Are those things that we're looking at?
So, Madam Mayor and members of council, so we've got some distributed locations. The strategy has been in the downtown, and this is really that this is for longer term. And so we're not proposing any, I think, level 3 chargers in the garage. We have some distributed locations, and Greg can, if you wouldn't mind chiming in the locations that we're looking at. I think it's helpful if that's the question.
No, I think he shared the locations. I just meant that exact garage or structure, if that was something that was going to be looked at.
We're happy to look at it. We're pretty far down the design path to bring in, phase 3. And we can certainly work and see if it's a possibility with the service. We just really can't afford any delays. We've had doing a lot on our delivery for electricity, but I'll let you, Matt, jump in.
Great,
Sure.
thank you.
Just one more item. Focus is our friend on this project. So moving forward and keeping our direction, moving in constant, forward is important. Level 3s aren't planned for this area, and it really kind of also dovetails with the parking philosophy. Is long-term parking goes into the parking structure, long-term charging goes into the parking structure. On street is for our more rapid charging and parking needs. So, and the other thing is it's a big lift to install a rapid charger. It's a larger energy demand, larger infrastructure, and it's a big change.
Great. Not looking for change orders and lots of extra time. I just was curious because as I think about that structure at nighttime, once the plays are done, once the restaurants are done, and we have more housing downtown and more density in downtown, there are people that need to park their cars. So I'm just picturing that might be a good option. So that's why I mentioned it and was curious. Vice Mayor Marks.
Thank you. Well, I'll keep my comments brief, but I'm definitely supportive of all 3 aspects of the staff recommendation. When people talk with me about local government, and I'm entering my 16th year now on city council, I say the elephant moves slowly. We need to be patient. It's incremental. And so every once in a while you get to actually get something done, or let's get it done, as the construction fellow said. So I think this is a really good plan. And of course, if there's, excuse me, any way to cut expenditures, go for it, but let's not slow it down any further. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, in the spirit of talking about long-term parking in the garage, I was really intrigued by Mr. Rand's comments around making sure that we're accommodating renters with that space and people being able to plug in overnight and take advantage of that charging. Do we have plans to accommodate that type of charging, particularly with our move to more high-density urban infill?
We have plans to accommodate that type of parking. In addition, in November, we'll do a parking rate study, go through the workshop of that, and that can be one of those items that's included in that RFP.
With some trickle charging potentially.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I just want to remind the council, we do have an overnight permit that's for residents. And so we'll have to balance that out with, I like to say we sell hunting permits, not necessarily parking permits, because we often know that a lot of the demand exceeds some of the supply. And so we have to be real careful about how we manage it, but we can do that through the comprehensive rate study.
Great. And just a couple of quick comments. It doesn't give me any particular joy to vote for a parking structure, but what it represents and what it's going to bring to this area, I just think it's going to be an incredible asset to that particular part of town. And I'm really looking forward to the arts and culture that is going to come along with it. And my dream is that eventually it is filled with e-bikes instead of vehicles, but we'll work on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shorsman.
Thank you. Yeah, I was really intrigued by Barry's comment about just good old fashioned plugs for slow chargers. If the long-term plan is to have more people be able to park in the facility overnight, people have those cords. We'll see where that goes. You look like you want to say something.
Oh, I think we're exploring some options. I was really intrigued when I was up in Stanford, all of their, in Palo Alto, Los Altos Hills, all of their school parking lots with the solar canopies. And they had retrofitted those for neighborhood solar parking. And so it provided a bunch of benefits. So the mayor and I had a chance to recently meet with the company, and that's something I want to explore with our sustainability team, because I think parking garages is one area, but I think in the neighborhoods is another solution. And talking to some of the staff, the city manager for that community, it's been a big success because you have neighborhoods that are there early in the morning and at night. And so we're going to explore a lot, and we'll certainly look at the parking structures as well.
Yes, I hadn't really thought of it, but as simple as it is, it seems like it should be not too difficult. I did want to ask about bike parking. Speaking of, you mentioned that there are quite a few bike parking spots in the plan for the structure. Will that be inside the building? Will it be protected? Will there be kind of emergency lighting around it so it feels safe to go into it and get your bike late at night?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So it is within the garage structure. We are working on a system that aligns with the entire downtown bike parking system. So we haven't spec'd that quite yet, but we will make sure that bikes are secure, and there are charging stations for those bicycles as well. So we think it will be really successful. We just want to make sure that it's in line with the rest of the community so we don't have a bunch of different systems.
Well, I know we have a lot of guidelines in the active transportation plan for how bike parking is supposed to look too, so I'm sure you'll take that into account. Yeah, just a couple comments. I agree with Councilmember Francis. I don't have a particularly large amount of joy about creating more parking in some ways, but I do recognize that this is a really, really important component for our downtown core. And as I think one of the speakers said, this is so much more than just a parking structure. There is a lot that's going into that, into the building. We've got an affordable housing component. We've got the theater. I mean, obviously what we're voting on tonight is just the construction contract for the structure itself. But I don't think in the couple of years that I've been on council, we've had a proposal come in under budget. So that's a win right there to save us $3.5 million from what we thought it was going to cost. So, to come to the end of a 2-decade project, what more could you ask for?
Thank you. And I very much agree. I think seeing all of the hard work that's gone behind these bonds, looking at the ratings, looking at the detail to be able to get actually more money than we expected for the bonds. It's really exciting. It's also something that really speaks to all the hard work of the staff and all the financial stability of our city. And so this is years in the making, our current staff and past staff. And so I just want to really say thank you to staff for all of this. And I know that we're constantly bringing new ideas, and I know you love that so much. But I do thank you for your patience through it all, because I think that while I hear the lack of joy for parking, I do understand that. And what's being talked about next is constantly electric vehicles. It's not about getting rid of all of the cars. And so we look at, while someday maybe that automated Jetsons dated cartoon of future vehicles will happen, there will be somewhere that those fleets need to charge. So I think that as I look at the lifetime of parking structure, we will probably see a lifetime of changes in parking and cars and what that looks like. But I think that we'll have plenty of use for this. So thank you so much for the affordable housing in this project, the undergrounding of the utilities. I know that seems so mild, and we talk about this and we just kind of talk about it and go by it really fast. But I think sometimes people forget, that this is what we do with all of our large projects now, so that we can keep not just the utilities safe, but people safe from future fires and whatnot that's happened in the past from gas and electric. So just wanted to throw that out there. And I am happy to move this project forward. Councilmember Shoresman, did you have something else before we move?
I was just going to second it or
Great.
make the motion, but
Awesome.
I'll second it.
Thank you. City Clerk, can we have roll call?
Mayor Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Shoresman,
Yes.
Councilmember Francis,
Yes.
Councilmember Pease,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Marks.
Yes.
Thank you. And the motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Wow, what a big project. Okay, we're just going to take 5 minutes or 4 minutes even, and we'll see you back at 7:55. All right, well, welcome back. We are here for the almost last and final item of the night. Excuse me. 7B, we're introducing an ordinance approving local amendments to the California Energy Code. And before we get started, Councilmember Pease.
Thank you so much. Due to my involvement in the building industry, I'll be recusing from this item. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would say the green building industry. Specifically. All right, well, with Sustainability Manager Chris Reed and Deputy City Manager Greg Herman, and which one of you are presenting first?
I'll make a few comments.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Mayor and council members. We're happy to be here tonight. This item is both a task in the current major city goal and a follow-up to the direction received at the April 18th city council meeting. As you know, at that meeting, council directed us to suspend enforcement of the all-electric requirement for new buildings due to a ruling in the Ninth Circuit related to federal preemption. We're continuing to monitor that case as well as any statewide developments, but unfortunately, due to a lack of progress on both fronts, we felt the need to bring forward to you an interim program. We've got Chris Reed here, our sustainability manager. We have our chief building official, Michael Lowe, who's going to be participating remotely, as well as our consultant, Farhad. I appreciate all of them and all their efforts to bring this program forward, but there is a disclaimer that I feel I need to provide, and that is that although this program is better than the current status quo, it is ultimately insufficient to meet our community goals of carbon neutrality by 2035, which means that we'll need to continue to track all the legal developments associated with this and our advocacy at the state level in order for us to achieve our goals, but also for other communities with similar goals to be able to move forward as well. And with that, I'll introduce Chris.
All right, thank you, Greg, and good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Chris Reed, the city's sustainability manager. Joining us remotely tonight is Mike Lowe, our chief building official, and to my left is Farhad Farahman. He's the associate director for energy policy with the firm TRC, and TRC has been our technical consultant throughout this project. And their work with us was supported via the Central Coast Community Energy Reach Code program. Staff's recommendation is to introduce an ordinance entitled an ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Luis Obispo, California, adopting local amendments to Part 6 of the Building Construction and Fire Prevention Code 2023. This amends San Luis Obispo Municipal Code Chapter 1504.060. In support of staff's recommendation, we'll start with some background and context. We'll then provide an overview of the proposed REACH code, and we'll conclude with next steps. So first, background. The foundation of staff's recommendation starts with the city's climate action plan. Adopted in 2020 and reaffirmed in 2022, the city's climate plan includes an adopted goal of community-wide carbon neutrality by 2035 and a goal of no new operational emissions from new buildings. Since 2020, the city has adopted standards for low emissions new buildings, and in 2022, the city adopted requirements that new buildings be all electric. The city had been successfully implementing the all electric new buildings requirement since January of this year. On April 17th, though, a 3-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in California Restaurant Association versus the City of Berkeley that a Berkeley ordinance requiring all electric new buildings was preempted by the Federal Energy Policy and Conservation Act and was therefore invalid. On April 18th, as a result of the panel's decision, the San Luis Obispo City Council directed the city manager and community development director to temporarily suspend enforcement of the all-electric building requirements for new buildings. Subsequently, the city issued an administrative order describing the conditions of the suspended enforcement. At that April 18th meeting, staff also heard from council a desire for us to monitor the situation and, if necessary, return with an alternative approach. And this was included in the financial plan, as Mr. Herman previously mentioned, which was adopted on June 6th of 23. Now, since April, we've been closely monitoring the situation and have observed a couple of things. So first, the City of Berkeley is currently petitioning for additional review by the full Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals It's uncertain when the court will approve or deny this petition, and if they approve it, we expect the proceedings to take some time. So in other words, the Berkeley appeal isn't likely to be resolved in a timely manner. Second, there are no imminent statewide fixes for the problem. If a statewide regulatory solution emerges, which is an if, it likely would not be in effect until 2026. And this is important because in the meantime, we're receiving building permits for mixed fuel buildings built to the state code minimum. For these reasons, staff recommends that council adopt an interim approach to making progress on its climate action goals as they relate to new buildings. As we just mentioned, the Berkeley decision really limits how a local government can regulate emissions. Given the constraints of the Berkeley ruling, staff's recommended and proposed approach is to increase building energy performance requirements via local amendments to the California Energy Code. This is commonly referred to as a REACH code because we're reaching beyond the base code. California state law explicitly establishes a process that allows local governments to adopt a REACH code so long as those local amendments are cost-effective and reduce energy relative to the state code. Staff's proposed approach does this while also not requiring appliances that exceed federal efficiency standards. I'm now going to hand the virtual mic to our Chief Building Official, Mike Lowe, to provide more information about the California Energy Code and our proposed approach.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. I first want to start with sharing that the Energy Code is just a bit unique from most standards that the Building and Safety Division enforces. This is because most codes protect people from hazards found in buildings. So for example, we mitigate the risk of fire in buildings with sprinkler systems. We mitigate the risk of structural failure with systems that can resist earthquakes. However, the Energy Code regulates source energy and the overall demand for energy caused by buildings. The Energy Code mitigates the societal and environmental effects imposed by buildings that would otherwise be over-consuming energy. Now, I wish I could tell you that how we enforce this code is straightforward, but unfortunately, it is a bit complex. So I'll briefly walk through how this works with an example on the next slide. This is a portion of an energy document that building and safety staff reviews to ensure compliance. You see, the Energy Code establishes an energy budget for each type of building through what is called a standard building design. The concept is that if you build this standard building according to a checklist that is in the code, then your building will perform at the minimum efficiency level that is allowed. This method of compliance is referred to as a prescriptive method. However, architects design their own buildings, and so they use a different approach in the code called the performance approach. Under this approach, designers use California Energy Commission software to demonstrate that their building does not exceed its energy budget and that it is at least as efficient as a standard building. So ultimately, the prescriptive approach establishes the standard for maximum energy consumption that the performance approach is bound by. So this document, you can see the standard design, which is on the top left quadrant of the chart, is preloaded into the software. Designers input their proposed design, which is just below it, and staff verifies that the compliance margins are equal to or greater than 0, which is on the right side of the chart. So this complex approach isn't something that we created for this REACH code. This modeling and these computations are actually occurring at the building counter every day for new projects. So for this REACH code, what we are asking you to consider is amending the Energy Code to create a minimum standard for compliance margins that is greater than 0. This slide shows the building types identified in the Energy Code and a proposed compliance margin by which each building type would be required to outperform the standard building design. I'll start by mentioning that single-family homes efficiency levels are determined by what's called an energy design rating, or EDR score. The EDR score is a points-based system that was established back in 2006 and just remained in the code. So that's why it's not represented as a percentage. But in general, the goal for this REACH code is to establish a higher compliance margin for all building types. These compliance margins that are right on the screen, these specific numbers for each building type, were calculated to ensure cost effectiveness and ensure that most all electric buildings already comply with the REACH code. So back to an example, and this is a real life example of what a building official would review. We received this document at the building counter for a 4,600 square foot all electric single family home just a few weeks ago. As you can see, the standard building design has an EDR1 score of 35.6, and the proposed 4,600 square foot home has an EDR1 score of 26.5, resulting in a compliance margin of 9.1. So this all-electric building would already comply with this REACH code because its compliance margin is greater than 6. Now, the first example I showed just a few slides back had a compliance margin of 3. And while that complies with the energy code today, since it's greater than 0, it wouldn't comply with these proposed standards. Chris is going to provide a few examples of how that building could reasonably comply with the REACH code. But before I turn it back over to him, I want to highlight that a mixed fuel building can be considered as efficient as an all-electric building according to the energy code. There are a couple of reasons for this, but primarily the energy code specifically regulates space conditioning and water heating, which accounts for our greatest energy demands. It does not address the energy demand caused by certain appliances that are otherwise regulated by federal efficiency standards, such as gas ranges, dishwashers, laundry units. But because of that, this REACH code allows designers to still choose the fuel source for many of their appliances. Chris?
All right, thank you, Mike. And as Mike noted, and as you've observed, since we're working in the California Energy Code, for better or worse, we have to speak the language of the California Energy Code. But we wanted to take a moment to step back from that and just walk through a practical implication of this REACH code, not in a chart, but with a real house. So we're going to imagine that we're designing a new home and that we want to just build it to the minimum efficiency standards of the current California Energy Code. So we look at that checklist that Mike talked about, the prescribed items in the code, and we'll start to add those features in to meet the performance required of that standard building. So we'll add some rooftop solar, we'll add some LED lighting. For building envelope, that means like insulation. So we'll add some wall insulation and some nice fancy windows. And for our city, our climate zone that we're in, we'll also add an electric heat pump hot water heater and a gas furnace. Now, when we put that into the compliance software that Mike talked about, we would expect this building to be at about 0 or better and would then therefore be eligible for a building permit. Now, under the REACH code, this building would have to achieve that 6-point compliance margin. There's a couple of pretty straightforward ways to do that. So the first would be to simply replace the gas furnace with a heat pump HVAC system, an electric heat pump HVAC system. Using commonly available heat pump HVAC systems on the market, this building would now score 6 points and would comply with the REACH code. Now, if we all decided it was really important to us to have a natural gas furnace for some reason, we could retain that and instead add a battery energy storage system, which would be a cost-effective installation and would allow us to exceed that score. So we would also comply with the code that way. There's many other ways that a developer, a designer could also comply with the REACH code to get those 6 points that may not be cost effective, but these are the cost effective and simple and most likely paths to achieving the REACH code. And so that approach applies to the other building standards. There's slight variations, but more or less the story is the same. So if we look at an office building, a standard design building, again, would be by definition the same as the code minimum. But now that we have to meet the 7% compliance margin, if we add an electric heat pump HVAC system, we would get there. Or if we wanted to retain our natural gas furnace, we could keep that and add efficiency and additional solar to meet those compliance margins. Now, as previously mentioned, state law allows cities to adopt REACH codes so long as those REACH codes are cost effective and reduce energy use without requiring appliances that exceed federal efficiency standards. The city must submit these findings to the California Energy Commission for their review and approval. The California Energy Commission uses a cost-effectiveness metric called the Time-Dependent Valuation, or TDV metric, to evaluate cost-effectiveness of measures in the Energy Code. And the reports we're using to identify cost effectiveness, which are produced by the statewide codes and standards team, those studies provide cost effectiveness information using that metric for a wide range of energy saving measures in the city's climate zone. And so based on those reports, the city finds that the proposed REACH code, staff recommends that council tonight finds that the proposed REACH code is more efficient than the base code and is cost effective, meaning that the benefits of the REACH code exceeds the cost. We'll note that the council agenda report goes into great detail about how each of the proposed amendments save energy and have benefits that exceed costs on a TDV basis. It is an admittedly dense part of the report, but we needed to include that both for public transparency, but also to facilitate the California Energy Commission's review of our findings related to cost effectiveness. And while we're talking about cost effectiveness, we just wanted to make sure we spent a couple minutes talking about available resources for new all-electric buildings. While the REACH code doesn't regulate to require all-electric buildings, it is still the case that all-electric buildings are typically cheaper to build and are still important for achieving our climate action goals. And fortunately, the state of California and regional partners are providing direct incentives for developers that build new all-electric buildings. And the amounts are substantial. So for example, an all-electric ADU or accessory dwelling unit would benefit from multiple sources and could receive $6,750 for going all-electric. Next, we'll discuss public engagement undertaken to support staff's recommendation. The concept of low emissions new buildings has been the subject of extensive outreach conducted in 2019, 2020, and 2022. The work in support of staff's recommendation tonight benefited from this outreach. And additionally, staff shared the REACH code via presentations and discussions with the Green and Healthy Homes Roundtable and the Developers Roundtable. We also sent information about tonight's item directly to local appliance distributors and to the energy utilities that serve the city. All right, we'll conclude our presentation with next steps. Should council approve staff's recommendation, we would return for the second reading and adoption of the ordinance on October 3rd. And at that point, we would, assuming council moves forward on October 3rd, we could transmit our submittal package to the California Energy Commission. We've been in contact with CEC staff, and should council adopt the ordinance, we anticipate being added to the November or December business meeting. And should the California Energy Commission agree with the city's cost effectiveness findings and energy savings findings, the city would then be able to enforce the REACH code starting January 1st, 2024. This concludes staff's presentation. We'll leave the recommendation slide up, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. You made this incredibly short compared to what I thought it would be. Thank you very much. And I really also thank you for the pre-meeting, because I think without that, sorry, I couldn't speak. Without that, this would be a very long part of the presentation because there were a lot of questions from me before. So that being said, Councilmember Francis, do you have a question?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. One that I asked in our pre-meeting was that if the courts end up ruling in favor of our previous ordinance, does that automatically then go back into place, or would we have to go through a process in order to bring the old ordinance back?
Thank you, council member. So section 6 of the administrative order reads that the order is automatically rescinded upon any judicial decision which overturns or otherwise vacates the ruling. So essentially, it's a snapback provision. There is language in the ordinance provided as attachment A in this council agenda report that should that occur, chapter 811 would supersede the REACH code. So essentially, we would enforce the electric buildings requirement, but then the REACH code would be put on pause.
Okay, fantastic. And then we had a little later in the day received a couple of interesting questions or feedback from the Slow Climate Coalition around plan review and code enforcement, and a worry that essentially since buildings would be approved early on and then inspected, but then not necessarily have follow-up, that there might be ways to potentially get around the code. And I was wondering if we had any sort of answer to that or feedback, or if we plan to do additional code enforcement.
Thank you, council member. And Michael Lowe, who's presenting remotely, I think would have the best answer for that.
Thank you.
Yes, would you mind repeating the question, please?
Yeah, there was a concern that, so the ask from the Climate Coalition was to prioritize and resource plan review and code enforcement, because there was an idea that the plans would be evaluated during permitting and then verified during inspections, but we wouldn't necessarily have effective enforcement after the fact to ensure that the appliances and heating and cooling that was approved originally actually is being utilized later. And so there was a question if we would be doing additional code enforcement.
Yes, so I would say that that's going to fall under our typical work without permits process that code enforcement does. These particular appliances that are going to be covered under this REACH code require permits to install. And so the code enforcement team would follow up with any reported work being done that did not have permits.
Okay, so we would just be doing code enforcement based on kind of reporting from community members, that type of thing.
Yes, there is also some loopholes that staff has identified in previous code versions that once a project was built, someone could come back and then say their home or their building was now existing and then add gas to it. This REACH code does have specific language that says that no future repair or addition shall reduce the established compliance margin or compliance margin that was established by this ordinance.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I know there were a couple of additional questions, but I'm going to let the Climate Coalition follow up with those during public comment. And thank you all for this presentation.
All right, any other questions from my colleagues? Do we have public comment?
Yes, we have 3. Barry Rands, Judy Young, Eric Viam.
Sure can.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, Eric Viam, Chair of the Slow Climate Coalition. Yeah, thank you. I guess I want to start by saying I'm happy. I'm appreciative of staff for bringing this policy to you. I'm also deeply frustrated that this conversation isn't at rest because we've got a lot of other really important work to be doing. So I'm kind of dysregulated because of that, and because, as you read in my public comment, that there are forces at play here that have brought us to this moment that were deeply immoral from my view and for our future. So the comments I do want to make in terms of the item that you brought up, Councilmember, I appreciate that, is so I built an all-electric ADU. My experience in working through the permitting and code enforcement process was that there wasn't specific questions or review steps that looked at the energy code compliance, and then during the inspection processes themselves, there weren't any specific actions taken to ensure that those measures were actually enforced. And I don't just mean with respect to a heat pump water heater or a heat pump furnace. I mean like the windows meeting the energy code that was specified in the plans. And so what the request is just a recognition that this energy code is complex, as you can see from the presentation, and that the code enforcement folks really need extra due diligence, both at the front end of permit and during inspection, to ensure that the builder is actually complying with what they're supposed to be in terms of following our ordinance and the law. And then really what this comes down to is we need to support the state in adopting an all-electric building code for 2025. And so just really ask you to direct Derek and staff to just do everything that we can to make sure that that's the case, because that will put this to rest. Andy will stop having to recuse herself, and then we can again move on to bigger and better things for our community. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Barry?
Mayor and City Council, I just want to affirm everything that Eric said, and also say, you know, it almost sounds like we're putting some kind of burden on people to go electric, and it's not that way. I'm electrifying my home, and it's just a joy to have these electric appliances. I cook on an induction stove myself. My wife loves it. We just got a heat pump water heater installed. It's great. Gas bill has gone way down. Electric bill's taken care of by the solar panels on our roof. So, you know, it's all good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final speaker is Judy Young.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, council members, and esteemed staff. My name is Judy Young, and I am the Senior Account Manager for member agencies with Central Coast Community Energy. And I am here tonight, no surprise, to express my support for 3CE's support for this item. The city of San Luis Obispo has emerged as a climate leader through the adoption of a climate action plan and the establishment of community-wide goals, including achieving carbon neutrality by the year 2035, among other initiatives. The adoption of the proposed code amendment aligns with the City of SLO's climate action goals and is further supported by rebates and incentives offered by 3CE to encourage the electrification of ADUs and affordable housing. As individuals, the most significant action we can take to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and enhance air quality is to transition from fossil fuel appliances and vehicles to all electric alternatives. Currently, 3CE supplies 50% clean and renewable energy to our customers, and we are on track to reach 60% by the year 2025, which is 5 years ahead of the state of California's goal. Our strategic commitment is to meet 100% of our energy demand with clean and renewable resources by the year 2030, which is a full 15 years ahead of the state's goal. Together, the City of San Luis Obispo and Central Coast Community Energy are poised to achieve our climate and clean energy objectives. We enthusiastically support the proposed ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's all of the public comment?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Shorsman.
Yeah, I guess I just had one question for staff based on some of the public comment, and recognizing that this is a cumbersome way to get at what we thought we had a much smoother and easier, simpler ordinance. And it doesn't even really do as good a job as our ordinance would have. And knowing that this is hopefully potentially a relatively short-term solution, at least until this code expires and there's a new code. And I guess maybe this is a question for Michael in terms of the code enforcement staff and the amount of training that they will get in order to implement these new measures and what the process is. We heard one example of a situation from the speaker about his experience with the code enforcement process. So, and this is more complex. So what are we going to do to kind of help staff enforce this a little bit better, especially given it's so complex?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So with this, I'll first just mention that building inspection team does have regular training annually just to stay current with their certifications. And so we're preparing to all attend California Building Officials Training Week, which is coming up here at the end of October. Now, I do leave the option for our inspectors to choose their own training modules that they'll attend. But for this ordinance or this REACH code in particular, I am working with ID360, which is a consulting firm, to specifically develop training for inspectors, for plans examiners, and for even our code enforcement staff to not only understand the parameters of the REACH code, but how it functions within the energy standards. And so this training is scheduled to be delivered the second or third week of January, pending council's decision this evening. We have begun a work plan to develop that training. It will be delivered at one of our quarterly staff meetings, which is 90 minutes to 2 hours long. It'll be a live presentation delivered by ID 360. We're going to also record that and save it as part of their academy so that any future staff that comes on will have access to it as well. So we are preparing not just to train on the specifics of this REACH code, but to actually understand the full, all the approaches and the complexities of the energy code in a live training where staff has the option to ask questions and get their answers in real time.
Thank you. That's my only question. So I guess, are we in deliberation? Yeah, we already had public comment. So I'll just say that I rather unenthusiastically and am in support of this, but only because I echo the frustration of our speakers that we're even here to begin with. So hopefully this will be one small step to move us in the direction that we tried to go already and got waylaid a little bit. So, and also enthusiastically support and want to assure that our speakers that we have a pretty robust legislative platform around these issues, and look forward to continuing to support electrification at the state level as we can as a city in our advocacy efforts.
Thank you. And Chris, would you mind, or City Manager, just share a little bit about the letter that you have sent in to the governor? Because I think it's just important for the community to know.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As part of a cohort of roughly, I think it's 24 other cities, we co-developed a letter to Governor Newsom. Actually, we signed on to a letter that was developed as part of our membership of Green Cities California, along with some other cities, asking that the governor include an all-electric building pathway as part of the 2025 building code. The California Air Resources Board adopted their climate change scoping plan in 2022, which sets the pathway for all state agencies to achieve the legislature's goals around greenhouse gas emissions reductions. In that is an action to pursue through the California Green Building Code and all electric standards. So we're not pulling this out of nowhere. We're really pointing back to the state's own plans, but really asking that as part of the 2025 building code, whether it's in the energy code, whether it's in the green building code or somewhere else, that there is either a requirement or an option to have an all-electric pathway that is legally defensible and consistent with EPCA.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Vice Mayor Marks.
Thank you. Well, this is definitely a workaround in response to the legal situation, which is very unfortunate. Excuse me. Sorry, the federal government should not be slowing down the movement toward electrification. So I will support this. And I also want to say that we're about to, the council and city manager and city attorney about to go to Sacramento. In fact, we're driving up tonight. And if there's anything that can be done in terms of direct contact with anybody when we're up there, I personally am willing to do it, and I bet the rest of us are too. So if I'm not sure, I think the governor's going to come speak. Maybe we can corner him. But if there's anything that anyone can figure out for us to do in the next 3 days that we're up there, please let us know. And so I will be voting to support this workaround. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, I won't repeat the comments from my colleagues other than to say thank you for stating all of that. And thank you to staff and everybody who's been working on this for putting something in place. I'm incredibly sad to know that we're not going to meet our goals through this particular ordinance, but I'm really hopeful that we will still be able to get there through some other means and through the laws changing. And so we will continue to work towards that. And I am in favor of this ordinance.
Great, thank you. And I'll just add, my 2 cents in. I want to say to Michael Lowe, thank you for sharing with the IE 360 and the training. I know that we'll be talking about code enforcement in a few weeks on other topics, but I think it's incredibly complex all of the time. And I am also very thankful that you, Chris, and the rest of the staff can make this as easy as possible for the general public to comprehend, as well as your graphics were awesome. While I hear the challenges and frustrations around not being able to get to where we want to as fast with this ordinance, I also do appreciate that you have shown ways for people to be able to start making the change while keeping their whatever thing is that matters to them. Obviously, my proclivity to a gas stove, and that has been, the one issue. Everything else, totally fine, and that's just my personal problem. But I think everyone has their something, and so this is a good compromise to allow that to happen. So, and still help us get closer and closer to our carbon neutral goals. So, thank you so much for all of your hard work, and thank you for the public comment. We also really appreciate it. On that note, Councilmember Shoresman.
I'm happy to move staff recommendation.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Francis.
Second.
Great, thank you. City Clerk.
Councilmember Shoresman? Yes. Councilmember Francis? Yes. Vice Mayor Marks?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, a motion passes 4 with 1 recusal. Thank you so much. All right, we welcome back Councilmember Pease for our last item, which is City Liaison Committee reports. And wanted to see if anyone has anything they'd like to share. Councilmember Shoresman.
Yeah, so it's been a relatively quiet week and a half or so since our last meeting, at least on my committee assignments. But I did go to my second CMC advisory body meeting, which is a body that was pretty much dormant during the pandemic because the prison was busy with lots of other things. But they've reactivated that group. And so we got together this past week. And the big topic there that's consuming a lot of attention for them is the closure of the West Housing Facility. They originally had about 2,000 inmates on that side of the facility, and now they're down to about 250. And they're slowly losing officers. Most of them are being transitioned into other facilities, but it's definitely changing the atmosphere around the facility. And so they're doing lots of things to try and make sure that their staff that are staying here are well taken care of, and that they're still happy, and moving them around into other positions if they want to do that. And we'll be doing some tours and things to see some of the retrofits that they're doing to the facility to use their site in different ways as a result of the lower population. So hopefully it'll result in some good changes for everybody who is still working and residing there. The other thing was happy to have the pleasure to attend with, I think, all of my colleagues yesterday, the convocation at Cal Poly, and see 13 wonderful staff and faculty get awarded for their various contributions to student growth and excellence, and the research and all of the different projects that they all do to make Cal Poly and our community, by extension, the great thriving academic environment that it is.
Wonderful, thank you. And I believe Councilmember Francis had a special part of that as well. Vice Mayor Marks.
Thank you. Well, briefly, the IWMA had a board meeting, and we discussed briefly the upcoming decision of the County of San Luis Obispo to rejoin the IWMA. But it's moving, the ball is in their court, it's moving at their pace. On the 26th of September, during their meeting, they're going to be doing a solid waste rate setting study, and they will have a choice at that time to look at a 8.1% increase for the residents of the solid waste fee, or they could rejoin the IWMA and go with a 4.4% rate for their customers. So if they decide, so they're going to then direct staff to come back, and we hope, we understand that on Halloween, on the 31st of October, they will formally ask to rejoin the IWMA. Then it has to go to all 7 cities. And we're going to try to get all 7 cities to put the item on some meeting in November, probably a consent item. It's in order to amend or to put an addendum to the current JPA agreement. So anyway, the goal is to get it all done this calendar year, so it may happen. So that's my report.
Wonderful. Thank you. Councilmember Pease.
Thank you so much. Just a couple of items. One is that the RTA met the day after our council meeting, and one of the big items there is a new cooperative agreement that's in the works between Santa Maria and San Luis Obispo County. And so both RTA and Slow Transit will be impacted by that, because right now RTA is the only one that runs down to Santa Maria. Santa Maria is interested in also being able to run up. And so, but we need to come up with a fair sharing agreement. And so SlowCog and the SB CAG is the same group in Santa Barbara. They're coming together and committing some funds to do an equitable study on that. So I think it's going to come out better in the long run. So excited about that, because it's a little tense for a moment. And then the other one that I wanted to mention was that the Groundwater Sustainability Commission met. We hadn't met for, there wasn't really anything to talk about before that, but unfortunately we didn't get an award of funding that we had applied for. And so we really don't have a source of money for any of the improvement projects right now. The good news, though, is that the spring water reports, where they show where all the monitoring wells are, the levels of the wells increased at the minimum at least 1 foot. Some of them, one of them as high as 62 feet gained in water levels. So buys us a little more time while we get some money and dial into what we're going to do next.
Councilmember Francis.
Well, on the 9th, I got to go to the IWMA free compost giveaway, which is the highlight of my fall. There's going to be another one in April. I asked them not to align it with spring break this year. It always falls in the same week. And so that was great. And then also attended with most of you all the really moving 9/11 ceremony at Fire Station 1 that featured our local middle school and high school choir and art from all of the 5th graders across the district. And it was a really great way to commemorate and also to ensure that the students are learning about this event that they weren't alive during. So it was a really moving time. And then, of course, the Cal Poly convocation with all of you. That was wonderful. And it was particularly an awesome event for our family. My husband was awarded during the ceremony with a Scholar Award. So that was great to be there.
That was pretty awesome to see. I wish I could say not busy, but I'll try to keep it quick so we can get on the road. 9/11, I just want to say that the memorial at Slow Fired was one of the best I'd been to in a really long time, and they've all been wonderful. But the 2 students, for some reason, from junior high and high school, were able to capture the moments that I think a lot of people felt in 2001. So I just thought, wow, it was just really, it was really moving to me. Also, on a kind of a fun note, the court-appointed special advocates, CASA, the organization celebrated their 30th anniversary this year, so it was really fun to be able to see them, and I believe they raised over $100,000, so also very exciting for them. On the 12th, one of the things that we do all the time is look at other communities and what do they do so that we can maybe bring some of those best practices back. So I went on a virtual tour of Orange County's Be Well, and I would say it's, if you could take 40 Prado and the Future Welcome Home Village and merge them together, that's what it looked like. And I really see so much success and hope from this organization, from Aspire, and really hope that we could continue as we look at opportunities in the future for us here in SLO. On the 13th, I got to join the city manager and others at the annual meeting for the Central Coast Community Energy. And if you get a chance for fun, just take a look at the slides from the annual meeting to see the kind of energy that we are working on together and the renewable energy that Judy Young spoke about earlier. It was just really awesome, and I could talk about it forever if we had more time. At the convocation, I would say congratulations, of course, to Clint and to Cal Poly for so many accomplishments. And concerned me quite a bit around the growth of Cal Poly and the housing that won't quite be built quite yet and what that will look like for our community. So there was a lot of positive messages and some a little bit concerning. So I know that Cal Poly will be here, I believe mid-October, and then we'll get to hear more about their housing plans. And then lastly, one of the things I am always very thankful for in the position of mayor is I get to meet with different individuals. I got to meet with Vishesh Anand from the governor's office, and I got to meet with Attorney General Rob Bonta last week, and we talked about housing and what we're doing in this community and the challenges in California. We also talked about hate incidents versus hate crimes and what does that look like and how do we help all of our community feel safe. And then we talked about the climate challenges of today and the future, of course, which goes along well with what we talked about today. So thank you so much for your time and listening, and looking forward to getting on the road and spending some Cal City's annual conference time with all of you. Well, thank you and good evening.